Welcome back, or for, I assume most of you, welcome to the T4Q podcast. I'm one of your two hosts, Alex. Ethan is not here with me today because I wanted to do my own solo project because I got a little hyperfixated on this NFL season. We are here to predict every single team's record this season, every single game. Without further ado, let's get into our first team, the Arizona Cardinals. First of all, I don't think you can find a single position group more improved in a single offseason in sports in a while than this Arizona Cardinals defensive line. They had the second worst pass rushing grade in the league last year, the sixth lowest pressure rate, but they brought in Josh Sweat, Baron Browning, Calais Campbell, they drafted Walter Nolan, and they're getting back Darius Robinson from injury, which is basically like putting 2 first-round picks on your D-line. It is one of the deepest D-line groups in the league, and like I said, you're putting 2 first-round picks, rookie first-round picks into your lineup. There's a lot of room for upside with this team. They were so bad last year, it was one of Arizona's biggest faults. Now that they have a sufficient D-line, I think that we could see this team improve a lot. The secondary could also see a massive jump. I am a big fan of Will Johnson. He fell in the draft because he was supposedly had a knee issue, supposedly was unhealthy. He's going to be starting week 1. That's a massive addition, in my opinion, to the Arizona Cardinals secondary. And that's not even to mention Garrett Williams, who I feel like has not gotten nearly enough praise. He had the second highest PFF coverage grade in the league last year, only behind Pat Surtain. Say what you want about PFF, that is really hard to do. Budda Baker is still a start, even though he's getting older. He didn't slow down at all last year. I'm excited to see what he can do. And finally, the thing that I think most people are waiting for me to talk about, this offense could be good. The biggest wild card with this team is, other than the D-line, in my opinion, Marvin Harrison Jr. He should improve. I don't fully understand why he didn't succeed very much in his rookie year. I mean, stats-wise, he had a 42% contested catch rate as opposed to a 70% in college. He was a contested catch demon in college. We haven't seen that so much in the pros so far. I'm hoping that Arizona can scheme up better looks for him, give him more contested catches that he knows how to make. I'm assuming he's going to bounce back this year. I'm assuming he's going to be closer to what his draft pedigree was. But we're going to see. The Arizona Cardinals start every year strong, and they taper off towards the end. In my prediction, they're not exactly going to buck that trend. So let's get into it. Week 1 at Saints, that's a W. Week 2 at Panthers, that's a W. Week 3 at the 49ers, that's an L. Week 4 versus Seahawks, that's a W. Week 5 versus the Titans, that is a W. Week 6 at Colts, that's an L. Week 7 versus Packers, that is an L. They have the bye in the 8th week. 9th week, they are at the Cowboys, that's a W. They are at the Seahawks. I'm going to give them an L on that one. Splitting the season series. They have the 49ers in week 11. I'm going to say it's a W at home. Cardinals versus 49ers. We'll get into the 49ers later, but I think the Cards take that one home. Versus Jaguars, week 12, got to be a W. Week 13 at Buccaneers. I expect the Buccaneers to finish really strong at the end of the year this year, so I'm going to give that as an L to the Cardinals. Versus Rams at home. I'm saying they get the W. Over the Rams. I think that's a good W for them. At Texans, week 15, I'm going to say that's an L. Falcons, week 16, at home, I'm going to say that's a W. At Bengals, week 17, I'm going to say that's an L. At Rams, week 18, I'm also going to say that's an L. That brings them to a 9-win season, 8 losses. The over-under for this team is 8.5 wins, so I'm going to take the slight over. Overall, I've ridden the Kyler Murray train a bit too much, I think. I've always said that he was underrated. He really disappointed me last year. He genuinely just didn't play up to the caliber of player that I thought he was. I don't fully understand the Cardinals' lack of success last season. I think that improving the D-line gives them a much higher floor. I'm excited to see what they can do. I think they can beat this 9-win projection. I think that this team has a lot of upside, and I'm excited to see what they can do. The second team, the Atlanta Falcons. What an interesting draft strategy, double dipping on rookie edges. I'm really excited to see what they can do. I'm higher on James Pierce Jr. than I am Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker, a lot of upside with that, but I think that James Pierce Jr. is a more polished prospect. And, with how bad the Falcons were last year in terms of getting pressure and having a good edge group, they had the second fewest sacks last year. They had the third worst pass rush PFF grade. They had the third worst tackle PFF grade. So, they at least knew where they needed to improve. Will they improve this year? Probably. It needs to be better for this team to be decent. It's important to mention this could be one of the best running teams in the league. The weapons that they have out back, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier is one of the best running back duos in the league. And they were supposed to have really good run blocking. They did have Cale McGarry, and he's going to miss the entire 2025 season to a injury that he sustained in the last Atlanta Falcons preseason practice, which is super disappointing. I think that this team had major opportunities to be a just offensive powerhouse in terms of their run game, but without Kaleb McGary, it's going to be a lot harder. They still have a good O-line. I'm excited to see what they can do, but now the pressure is kind of on Michael Penix. Michael Penix was a really good player at the end of last year. I'm not going to take that away from him. What I will say is that my worry in his college tape, and my worry about him in general, is that he doesn't handle pressure particularly well. He's slow. He doesn't feel out the pocket very well. His mechanics are not exactly fast. He has unbelievable athleticism for the position. He has a rocket arm, but the speed it takes for him to get throws off, not the fastest. And last year, we didn't really get to see him play an NFL pass rush. He played the Commanders, the Panthers, and the Giants. The Panthers were the worst defense in football. Commanders were the fourth, and the Giants are the Giants. So this team has a massive range of outcomes. I want to believe in Michael Penix. If Michael Penix hits, the weapons that they have surrounding him, being Darnell Mooney, being Drake London, being Bijan Robinson, being this O-line, very impressive. Their secondary, especially with Jesse Bates, very impressive. And A.J. Terrell, can't forget A.J. Terrell. There's a lot of potential with this team. If their first round picks hit, which I'm predicting that they'll have a mediocre season, this team has a pretty wide range of outcomes. They could disappoint, they could also perform to the upside. So, schedule time. Week 1 versus the Buccaneers at home. I'm going to say that's a W for the Falcons, maybe a controversial one. I'm going to get into the Buccaneers later in this video. Highly recommend you stay around for that. I think that team is fascinating. Second week at Vikings, I'm going to say that's a loss for them. Third week at Panthers, I'm also going to say it's a loss for them. Versus Commanders, week 4, also going to say it's a loss for them. They get that bye week, which coming off of 3 straight losses, you're going to be happy about. It doesn't stop there. Week 6, I'm also going to say that's a loss for them. Week 7, I'm also going to say that's a loss for them. Panic mode is on in Atlanta. They are now 1-5, but it gets a bit better. Dolphins, week 8, I think that's a win. Patriots, week 9, I think that's a loss, but they're going to finish strong. Versus Colts, I think that's a win. Versus Panthers, I think that's a win. At Saints, I think that's a win. At Jets, I think that's a loss, unfortunately. The Jets have to have their days sometime. They can't lose every single game. I think that the Jets stack up in a unique way versus them because I think that Justin Fields can absolutely take advantage of some of the faults of that Atlanta Falcons defense. Versus Seahawks, I'm going to say it's a W. At Buccaneers, I'm going to say that's an L. Bucs are definitely going to be better later in the season. At Cardinals, as I said earlier, is going to be an L. Versus Rams, week 17, I'm going to say it's a W. And versus Saints, week 18, I'm going to say it's a W. Brings them to an 8-9 season. Their over-under was at 7.5, so I'm going to slightly say the over. Definitely in for a stronger second half than first half. That first half schedule is pretty rough, and I'm going to say that they lose some of the ticky or tacky ones. I think that specifically earlier in the season, some of those games that they need to win, I have a hard time seeing them win. I think after the bye week, they could definitely pick up some steam. I think Michael Penix is going to have some growing pains. I'm not banking on their success early. That's my prediction, 8-9 for the Falcons. Let me know what you think. Okay, third team is third. Baltimore Ravens. You can ask anyone. This team either has the best roster in the NFL or the second best roster in the NFL. It's really between them and the Eagles. But this secondary, we are going to see something special. I mean, just Marlon Humphrey and Jair Alexander as your cornerback duo is disgusting. Kyle Hamilton as your safety, who could have won Defensive Player of the Year last year, is disgusting. You then have Nate Wiggins, and you just drafted Malachi Starks, who for this Ravens defense, that physical, big-bodied safety that can play in nickel coverages, he's going to come in and immediately have an impact. I'm so excited for him. Malachi Starks is a perfect replacement for our Darius Washington. That injury is so unfortunate. He was setting up to get a big payday. Hope that he recovers well from his injury. And they also brought in Chidobe Awuzie. This is the best secondary in the NFL, and we live in a passing league. This is going to be good. Not to mention, the Baltimore Ravens had a streak of just fluky comebacks happen against them. Having this good of a secondary, I have a harder time seeing other teams come back against them and pick them apart with passes. I mean, I don't even know how much else I need to get into. Every single position group is good on this team. They had the 4th best run defense in the league last year. Do I even need to mention Lamar Jackson? They have either the best or the second best quarterback in the league. Do I even need to mention Derrick Henry, one of the top 3 running backs in the NFL? Their strengths got strengthier, and their offense got even better. If there's any weakness to this team, you can say the O-line isn't spectacular. I'd say it's about middle of the pack. Ronnie Stanley is incredible. Tyler Linderbaum is probably the second best center in the league. So, hard to say that it's a bad O-line. It's just not spectacular. As long as you keep Lamar healthy, as long as he gets enough protection to do that, you should be in a good spot. All right, so my season prediction. I'm going to say week 1 at Bills. I think that's a loss. I think Bills Mafia can get Lamar shook. Week 2 versus the Browns, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 3 versus the Lions, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 4 at the Chiefs, I'm going to say it's a loss. So they start off 2-2, a little disappointing, but just you wait. Week 5 versus the Texans at home, that's a win. Week 6 versus the Rams at home, that's also a win. Bye week, week 7. Week 8 versus the Bears at home, that's a win. At Dolphins, week 9, that's a win. Vikings, week 10 in Minnesota, that's a win. At the Browns, week 11, gotta be a win, no other way. Week 12 versus the Jets at home, that's a win. It keeps going. There's quite a win streak in here. The Bengals, week 13 at home, I think that's a win. Versus the Steelers at home, I also think that's a win. Hard to say that it's not gonna be a win there. At Bengals, week 15, I'm also going to give the Ravens a win. I think that they complete the series sweep on the Bengals. Versus Patriots, week 16, I'm also going to say that's a win. At Packers, week 17, the winning streak comes to an end. I think that Lambeau gets them a little bit. I think that the Packers can take that singular game, especially because of how good their run game is, even though the secondary is elite and their run defense is elite, but whatever, you have to try to do something. Last week of the season, Steelers at home, I also think that's a win. That brings the Ravens to a 14-win season. This is the highest above a projected win total that I am for any team in the league this season. I think they go 2.5 games above their over-under of 11.5. I think they win 14 games. I think they lose 3. This Ravens team is set up for success, man. I'm so excited for this season. But this Ravens team has the potential to be one of the best defenses in the league and one of the best offenses. I can't wait to see what they do, but 14 wins is my guess. All right, 4th team, the Buffalo Bills. This team is Derek Lewis's just get up jitsu, if you know what I'm talking about. If it was a team, they've just found a way to win. The defense wasn't that good, but they just found a way to win. Josh Allen just found a way to win 13 games without a wide receiver 1. Khalil Shakir being his wide receiver 1. They won 13 games somehow. Their O-line is okay. Cyrus O'Torrance needs to be better. He's a weak link in the offense, but the O-line should overall be okay. The weapons still aren't great. Khalil Shakir as a wide receiver 1 is a weakness. People are excited about Keon Coleman. We're going to see they have a couple of high draft picks in that offense that haven't exactly panned out. I'm always going to be a Dalton Kincaid believer. Loved his tape. Loved that guy. But he hasn't exactly shown first-round talent yet. The Joshua Palmer acquisition was puzzling. Can't say that I got that one, but at least they did add to their weapons. The secondary was bad for the Buffalo Bills. It was the worst coverage grade in the NFL, so at least Christian Benford is still elite, but adding Maxwell Hairston, you hope that the secondary is going to be better this season. There weren't too many massive changes for this Bills team, so I'm not going to dwell on them too long. Hopefully the secondary is a little bit better. Hopefully the weapons are a little bit better. Hopefully Josh Allen can finally get over the Chiefs. We're going to see. I'm excited for this team, also a little dubious. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up this defensive line. Adding Joey Bosa, if he can stay healthy, that's going to be a big part of how successful this team is. He's coming in to replace Von Miller. I think that we can expect a fair amount from him. I'm not going to say that this D-line is anything special, but I won't say that it's horrible. There's a wide range of outcomes on this. You still have Ed Oliver, you still have Greg Rousseau, who provide a high floor for this team. At the end of the day, having Josh Allen just sort of makes things work, and they have Josh Allen, so it should work out. All right, so my season prediction. Week 1 versus the Ravens at home. I think they get the W versus the Ravens. Big win there. At Jets week 2, I think they take the W. Versus the Dolphins at home week 3, I think they take the dub. Saints, they're going to start 4-0 because I am not predicting that the Bills are going to lose to the Saints at home. That would be a bold one. Week 5 versus the Patriots at home, I'm also going to say a win. They start 5-0. At Falcons, 6-0. Going into the bye, they are undefeated. That is my prediction. At Panthers, I think they also take the win. At Chiefs, versus Chiefs at home, I think that's also a win. This Bills team can start 9-0 in my opinion. I wouldn't expect them to lose any of these. At Dolphins, week 10, I'm also going to say a win, so they start 10-0. Versus the Buccaneers at home, I think they take the L. It starts to cascade a little bit. At Texans, I think they lose the next game after that. That Texans defense is gnarly, and I think that they have the edge on the Bills in this specific game with the home field advantage. At the Steelers, Week 13, I think the Bills get back on track, get a W. Versus Bengals at home, I think they take the L. I think that's going to be an absolute shootout, but it's going to be a fun one. At Patriots, Week 15, I think they also take the L. I don't think that they can sweep the Patriots throughout the season. At Browns, got to be a W. This Browns team sucks. Versus the Eagles, Week 17, I think that's an L, to be honest. So, I mean, all things considered, really strong start to the season. They end up kind of like fizzling out. By Week 18, they're going to play the Jets at home. I think that that's also going to be a W, meaning that their season total goes to 12-5. The over-under for this team was 12.5. I think they slightly underperformed that. The surrounding factors to Josh Allen aren't as good as you'd really want them to be when you're comparing this team to a team like the Ravens. I think that you have an incredible coach in Joe Brady. I think you have an okay coach in Sean McDermott. You'd hope that they could live up to the expectations set by Josh Allen's excellence, but honestly, he covers up so many holes in this offense. If at any point he has even a minor injury or he comes back down, I think that this team could disappoint to the downside. I think 12 wins is more than fair. It's under for their projected total wins for the season, but they're definitely not a bad team. All right, the fifth team is the Carolina Panthers. The over-under for this team is 6.5 wins. This team is in general a wild card, but Bryce Young is the king of wild cards on a team of wild cards. I believe in Bryce Young. 2 seasons ago, he really struggled against the blitz. Last season, we saw him improve over the course of the season. I think he's finally starting to feel comfortable as an NFL quarterback, and long story short, I believe in him this season. After getting benched, he improved a lot, which I can't say that I've seen that much. Week 8 through the rest of the season, if you look at QBR, if you just look at metrics in general, he was about a league average quarterback, which is good. Being the 16th quarterback in the NFL is a major accomplishment. Obviously, he was the first overall pick. Obviously, there's reason to believe that he could even improve upon being a mid-tier quarterback. I don't think if I had to rank him right now, I would consider him the 16th best quarterback in the NFL, but I think that maybe by season's end, that's where we could be considering him. I think he could even be above that. I will say that the weapons are generally lacking on this team. You're relying a lot on Ted McMillan, who once again is a rookie. You can't put too much pressure on a rookie, but if there was a rookie to put pressure on, Ted McMillan would be him. I love this guy's game. I think he could be a Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans type. He is unbelievable. He's big-bodied, incredible ball skills. I loved watching his tape at Arizona. Super excited to see how he can fit in with Bryce Young. And then after that, Xavier Legette, man. He needs to catch the ball. Xavier Legette taught me to not take people who can catch the ball for granted. He dropped 7 of 57 catchable balls last season. One of the worst drop rates in the NFL. He showed promise, but man, please tell me that he spent 2 hours a day on the jugs machine and he's going to come in, not a single drop pass, because he could be a legit wide receiver too. He's got all the traits that he got drafted for. He just needs to catch the ball. Now, last season, that Carolina defense was historically bad, which is what led to them losing so many games. I won't say that the defense will be good this season, but it won't be the worst in the league. Derek Brown coming back is huge. I really liked where they drafted Nick Scordon. I think that that's going to help a lot. Getting Bobby Brown, getting Tershawn Wharton also raises the floor of this team. The secondary is still lacking, but J.C. Horn and Tara Mooring should keep it from being terrible. Hopefully Lathan Ransom doesn't disappoint as a rookie. I haven't heard that much hype about him coming out of camp. I'm a bit worried about him being on the starting roster here. This team has improved a lot, and there's reason to believe the upside. There are definitely some concerns, but I generally believe in the coaching staff in Carolina. I think that this team can outperform their over-under. Let's get into the schedule. The Panthers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville week 1. I'm going to say it's a win. Week 2 in Arizona versus the Cardinals. Going to say it's a loss. Week 3 at home versus the Falcons. Going to say that's a win. Week 4 at Patriots. I'm going to say that's a loss. We're starting off the season 500, which for the Panthers, you'll take. Week 5 versus the Dolphins, a win. 3-2. Week 6 versus the Cowboys. 4-2. I'm going to say that is a win. Take that dub at home. Week 7 at Jets. I think that's a W for the Panthers as well, but it gets a little more difficult. Week 8 versus the Bills. Gonna say that's an L. At Packers week 9, that's an L as well. Week 10 versus the Saints at home, that's W. At Falcons week 11, I'm gonna say it's an L. At the 49ers week 12, hard to say that's gonna be a win. I'm gonna call that an L. Versus the Rams at home week 13, gonna call that an L. That bye couldn't have come at a better time. 3 straight losses for this team going into the bye. Week 15, I think they come out stumbling. I think the Saints need to win at least a couple games this season, and this is a game I could potentially see the Saints ripping away from them. This would be a devastating loss for the Carolina Panthers if it happened, because this would be 4 in a row and a bye week. That's an L. Week 16, I'm going to say versus the Buccaneers at home. That's also an L. The Bucs are going to finish strong this season. I swear it. Week 17 versus the Seahawks at home. I think that's a W. And then week 18 at the Buccaneers. Also going to say it's an L. Really disappointing end of the season after a pretty promising start, but I'm going to say that they finished 7-10, slightly above their projected total of 6.5. There are so many holes with this team, and I'm not convinced that they did enough to improve the D-line, improve the secondary to keep this defense from not being one of the bottom defenses in the league. I don't think it's going to be as historically bad as it once was, but I'm not predicting a super bright future for this Panthers team. I don't think that this is a playoff caliber team yet. We're going to see. I'm excited for this team. One of the most exciting, fun teams to watch in the NFL this season. Let me know your thoughts. Next up is the Bears. I know I called the Panthers a wild card team in the last one. This is the most wild of wild card teams in the NFL. I think that this team probably has the second widest range of outcomes of any team. It all comes down to who will Caleb Williams be? I don't have an answer. I think most people don't have an answer. He led the league in bad throws by 12. He had 110. Bo Nix was second with 98. His pocket presence is not great. A lot of people pointed to the O-line last year and said, oh, that was the reason why Caleb... No, I don't subscribe to that view, in my opinion. I think that the O-line for the Bears last year wasn't that bad, and now it's a whole lot better, but a lot of the sacks that Caleb Williams took, in my opinion, were self-inflicted. I think that he can do better to avoid getting sacked, and that's got to be better this year. If you look at blocking stats last year, and if you look at Caleb Williams' stats last year, he had an average time to throw of 3.91 seconds, which is not bad at all. Not to mention, he had the highest pressure-to-sack ratio in the league, except for Will Levis, who isn't even a starter anymore. Of starters this year, he had the worst pressure to sack ratio. He's shown the ability to be better. His lack of accuracy is really concerning and not expected. He was an accurate college quarterback. Being one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the league was not on my bingo card for Caleb Williams when he was drafted. He was second in the NFL in scrambles, and when he scrambles, he is special. I think that his athleticism gets underrated. He has the ability to get out of a pocket and create plays, those magical plays that go on highlight reels. But his ability to tell when to scramble out of a pocket and when to bail out of clean pockets is infuriatingly bad. And then staying in collapsing pockets, also infuriatingly bad. The upside is there. No one can deny that. I have no idea what he's going to be this year, but he's the single most important factor for this team. Like I mentioned earlier, the O-line's massively improved. Getting Joe Thuney, who's probably the best pass-blocking guard in the league, is a huge plus. I like Luther Burden. I don't understand why the Bears drafted him. That weapons room is now very talented, but very crowded. I am very excited to see what Ben Johnson can do with this team. Just to touch briefly on the defense, which I don't think is the most important aspect of this team, it should be around middle of the pack. What's going to decide this team's fate is going to be their offense, and is going to be Caleb Williams. All right, prediction time. I am predicting week 1 at home versus the Vikings. That's going to be a W. Week 2 at Lions. That's a loss. Cowboys, week 3 at home. I'm going to say it's a win. Away at Raiders. That's going to be a win. Bye week 5. Nice early bye week. Week 6 at the Commanders. I'm going to say it's a loss. Saints, week 7. Easy dub, because Saints at home. Saints in the Bears' home. In Chicago. That's going to be a pretty easy win. Away at Ravens, week 8. Don't think they can win that one. Away at Bengals, week 9. I think they're going to lose 2 in a row. Week 10, the floodgates have opened, and Bears fans will be unhappy with this prediction, but I'm going to say that they lose at home versus the Giants. This Giants pass rush is unbelievable, and I think that Caleb Williams will struggle against it, and I think that there's a chance that Caleb Williams takes 8 sacks in that game, and we're all like, okay. Week 11 at Vikings, I'm going to say it's a loss 4 in a row in the middle of the season when their season was looking up. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow. Week 12 versus the Steelers, I'm going to say is a win. Week 13 at Eagles, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 14 at Packers, I'm going to also say it's a loss. Week 15 versus the Browns at home, I'm going to say it's a win. Versus the Packers at home, Week 16, also going to say that's a win. We're getting on a bit of a streak here. Week 17 at the 49ers. I think the 49ers are going to be pretty beat up by that point. I'm going to say that's a win for the Bears. 3 in a row. Do we hear 4 versus the Lions at home, Week 18? I think we do. I think that the Bears are able to split with the Lions in the season series, and I think that coming back home to Chicago on that win streak, I think that they can get the job done. But that's just my prediction. I'm going to say that they win 9 games this season. Their over-under was 8.5 wins, so slightly over. I wouldn't say I'm that optimistic for this Bears team. To be honest, the defense is going to be middle of the pack. It all just comes down to Caleb Williams. I have no idea what this team's going to be. That's my prediction, is that Caleb Williams gets a little bit better. The surrounding cast does help him. Having Ben Johnson makes this offense at least competent, but it comes down to Caleb Williams. And you, me, and the next person all don't know what he's going to be, so don't lie and pretend. All right, team number 7, the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't even know how much time to spend on this team. There is no one outside of Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase on that offense, and there's nobody on that defense except for Trey Hendrickson. This is one of the most star-driven teams I've ever seen. There's not that many role players when looking at it. I'm like, oh yeah, I see the upsides. I try to find hidden gems like that. I couldn't find any gems on this Bengals team that I'm particularly excited about. This defense is going to be bad. Not to mention Joe Burrow. He does have probably the best wide receiver duo in the league. He also has one of the worst O-lines. The Bengals just brought in Dalton Risner, which I'm glad they did because they were going to start Dylan Fairchild, their 3rd-round rookie, who had a good preseason, a good camp, don't get me wrong, but that was going to be a horrendous decision if they had Dylan Fairchild as their starting left guard for the season. I could have seen that being a disaster. Glad that they have Dalton Risner now. An incredible but true stat, the Bengals had a pass block win rate of 50%. Their O-line won their matchup half of the time. The worst in the NFL. And they didn't really do much to improve it in the offseason. So, I mean, Joe Burrow is going to be Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase is going to be Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is going to be T. Higgins. And there's nothing you can do to stop this offense from being high-powered and working unless there's an injury. And considering how T. Higgins is and considering how Joe Burrow has been throughout most of his career, anytime one of those 3 guys is out, it's going to be tough to win. Let's move on to the defense. The only thing keeping their D-line from being the worst in the league is Trey Hendrickson. I'm really glad that they reworked it so he's at least playing this season, because that would be a disaster if they did not sort that out. This secondary misses Jesse Bates, man. I don't even want to go through it. There's not that many people to really talk about. This defense is going to be bad. Last year, to go 9-8, they needed Joe Burrow to have a historic season. Just unbelievable. I hope they can replicate that. They probably can't. I think some of the games narrowly went against the Bengals' favor. So let's see what this win total is going to be. Bengals over-under is set at 9.5. I think week 1 at Browns is a loss. I know, daring prediction. Last year's loss versus the Patriots in week 1 was shocking, but they now have a tradition of just coming out flat in week 1. And considering everything that's been going on with Trey Hendrickson's contract and the general chaos of this team, I'm predicting a week 1 loss versus the Browns. I think that they just kind of like trip out the gate. That doesn't mean that their season is over and done with, but I think that Browns team is going to somehow get a win, and we're going to think that the Browns might be good this season, like the Saints of last season. Who knows? Week 2 versus the Jaguars at home, I think that's going to be a W. I think that they stopped the bleeding for a bit. Week 3 at Vikings, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 4 at Broncos, I'm going to say that's a loss. And week 5, Lions at home, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 6, Packers at home, I'm going to say that's a loss as well. That is a tough stretch of games at Vikings, at Broncos, Lions at home, at Packers. I think they drop all 4, and they're looking at a 1-5 season right now. It gets a little better. Steelers week 7, I think they win. Jets week 8 at home, I think they win. Bears at home, I think they also win. Week 9, I think that's a dub. The bye week comes as they're on a 3-game win streak. At Steelers, week 11, I think they come out a little flat after the bye. I think they lose. Week 12 versus the Patriots, I think they're going to win that. At Ravens, I think they lose. At Bills, I think it's going to be a shootout. I think the Bengals win that one. Versus the Ravens at home, I think they take another L at the hands of the Ravens. I think the Ravens get the season sweep. Week 16 at the Dolphins, I think that's a W. Versus the Cardinals at home, I think that's a W. And then to finish off the season on a little win streak there versus the Browns at home, that's a W. Bring their season total to 9-8, a repeat of last year. I think that the Bengals got slightly unlucky in their win total. But like I said, they needed everything to go right to get their 9-8 season. And to be fair, there's nothing to suggest that everything's not going to go right this season. I'm just dubious of them outperforming that at all. If I had to take a guess, they're probably going to hit the under on the 9.5 total. That is my guess. I'd be shocked if they went over 9.5, to be honest. I don't think that this is a 10-win roster, no matter how good your quarterback and surrounding cast for that quarterback is. You need other players, and that defense is sorely lacking many people that they need. The 8th team, the Cleveland Browns. My opinion about the Browns quarterback room is the age-old saying, I forgot who said it. Someone said a long time ago that if you have multiple quarterbacks, you really have 0. And this team had 5 quarterbacks for the offseason. Now they only have 3. I don't think any of the quarterbacks are going to perform well. This team is a dumpster fire. Their O-line is old, still decent, but it could be getting worse. Hopefully they can still protect a 42-year-old Joe Flacco. The weapons for him are not great. You got Jerry Jeudy, who I think is a bit overrated, to be honest. I don't think that he's going to come out and be the darling wide receiver 1 that we think he's going to be. You got Cedric Tillman. Okay. Quinshon Judkins is going to face suspension, so you're starting Jerome Ford as your running back, and that's going to be a toughie. I will say, the D-line is definitely the best thing about this team. Myles Garrett, no matter what team he's on, is going to make whatever D-line he is on good. Mason Graham, I'm excited for his rookie season. He is a high-floor player. Hopefully this D-line can at least patch some holes. The secondary's not great outside of Denzel Ward, but this is, in my opinion, the worst offense in the league. Yes, the Saints exist. I still think this is the worst offense in the league. They only won 3 games last year, and I think they had a better chance to be a good team last year than they do now. The Browns have the toughest schedule in the NFL this season. So, week 1 versus the Bengals is going to be a win. I said that earlier. They have to win at least a couple. They are going to be worse than every team that they play, probably. They win that one. At Ravens week 2, that is a loss. Versus the Packers at home, that's a loss. At Lions week 4, that's a loss. Versus Vikings at home, that's a loss. At Steelers week 6, that's a loss. Versus the Dolphins at home, that's a loss. At the Patriots, that's a loss. They have the bye week on week 9, which is great because they lost 8 straight games, but doesn't stop there. Week 10 at the Jets, that's a loss. Ravens at home, week 11, that's a loss. At the Raiders, week 12, that's a loss. Versus the 49ers, week 13 at home, that's a loss. Versus the Titans at home, week 14, they won! After so many weeks of not winning, I'm saying that the Browns get their second win there in week 14. Week 15, the Bears away, that is a loss. Versus the Bills at home, that's a loss. Versus the Steelers at home, that's a loss. At the Bengals to finish off the season, that's a loss. I'm predicting that the Browns go 2-15. I think they're worse than they were last year, and it's not going to look much better for a while. Hopefully things work for them, but I don't think it's going to work this season. I'm lower on the Browns than any other team that I'm going to go over today. Their over-under is 5.5. I am 3.5 games below that. I think they're going to win 2, which is the lowest beneath the prediction that I am for any team in the NFL this season. So, yeah, this Browns team is really bad. Team number 9. How about them Cowboys? Micah Parsons is gone. What the Jerry, you old man. This is a generational mismanagement of assets, in my opinion, by Jerry Jones. Kenny Clark is going to help with their run defense problems, but you lost Micah Parsons. Kenny Clark gets Mazzie Smith out of the starting lineup, which is great, But once again, you lost Micah Parsons. I would say also the fit is generally pretty good for Kenny Clark. Dallas is no longer the pass rush threat that they were, but they've improved a lot as a run defense team. But you lost Micah Parsons. So this defense is going to be worse than it was last year. Hard to say otherwise. Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland have both come back down to earth from what they were once considered. Deron Bland just got that massive contract extension. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest. I think betting on interceptions is not a good idea, and I think that's what Jerry Jones is doing with the Micah Parsons money. So what do I know, man? I'm not an NFL GM, so I'm not particularly high on their secondary, if you can tell. They have no running game. I don't know if there is a running back group I am lower on in the NFL. If Quinshon Judkins plays for the Browns, I think they're probably better than Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. At least the Commanders have like a committee of people that I like somewhat believe in. Austin Eckler can catch the ball. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I'm excited to see what he can do. There's a little bit of upside with that. I'd still say that the Commanders running back room is better than this Cowboys running back room. Javonte Williams just doesn't have the mobility anymore, man. It's sad. I was really high on him coming out of college, but just injuries have limited his athleticism, and I think the Cowboys fans are going to see that in prime time next season. They will not be able to run the ball. Luckily, they can throw the ball. I mean, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens is some of the best weapons available to a quarterback in the league. Dak Prescott, I think, sits right at a fringe top 10 quarterback. He's not worth the money that he's getting paid, but he's still very good. That being said, the passing game has to work because the running game isn't going to, and this O-line no longer has Zach Martin. Dak and CD will be great. To be honest, I'm buying the under on George Pickens, man. The Pittsburgh Steelers know exactly when to get rid of wide receivers. The track record of that is insane, whether it's Antonio Brown or Deontay Johnson or, not a wide receiver, but Le'Veon Bell. When they let a offensive weapon go, it usually was the right decision. So for that reason, I don't think that the offense is going to be terribly good either. So let's get into prediction time. Once again, the Cowboys are at over under 7.5. Week 1 at Eagles, that is a loss. Week 2 versus the Giants at home, that's going to be a win. At Bears, week 3, that's a loss. Versus the Packers at home, that is going to be a win. They start off 2-2. Good for them. Week 5, the Cowboys are feeling great. At Jets, that's going to be a win. Week 6 at Panthers, that's a loss. Week 7 versus the Commanders at home, that's going to be a win. At Broncos week 8, that's a loss. Week 9 versus the Cardinals at home, that's a loss. They go into the bye on a 2-game skid. They come out, they're not doing much better. At Raiders, the Raiders need to win at least a couple of games. I think these two teams are particularly well evenly matched. I think the Raiders come away with the win, to be honest, with that home court advantage. Versus the Eagles, Cowboys at home versus the Eagles, I think they still take that L. Versus the Chiefs at home, still take that L. At Lions in Detroit, they're going to take that L. Versus the Vikings at home, week 15, they finally break the skid and win one. Versus the Chargers at home, I think that's a loss in week 16. At Commanders, week 17, I think that's also a loss. And they finish off the season sweeping the Giants in New York, week 18. That gives them a total of 6 wins and 11 losses on the season. Yeah, man, I'm low on this Cowboys team. I think that specifically having Schottenheimer as your coach is going to make everything worse. I don't believe in him as a coach. I don't believe in any of the Dallas coaching staff. I think that Jerry Jones likes hiring yes men. And I think that we're going to see every expectation that we have for the Dallas Cowboys be underperformed because this team lost one of its superstars. I'm guessing the chemistry isn't good behind closed doors. And on top of that, this coaching staff is just not where you need it to be. For those reasons, I'm low on the Cowboys. I'm saying 6 wins, man. I don't know if that's audacious, but that's where I'm at. Let me know what you think. Team number 10. Let's go Broncos.
Let's go Broncos.
Broncos, let's go. I've been doing this prediction thing for a couple of years now. The most wrong I have been about a team was that first year that Russell Wilson was on the Broncos. I thought that team was going to be spectacular. It was not. This year, I'm trying my best to think critically, man, but what does this team not have? Quarterback Bo Nix improved down the stretch. He could be a star next season, in my opinion. I think he starts about a mid-tier quarterback this season, but next season, he has shown nothing but steady improvement. Week 8 onwards, Bo Nix had the 7th most passing yards and the 8th best QBR in the league. And he did that with the supposedly bad weapons that everyone's freaking out about. So going into this season, In my opinion, we should be considering him as a near top 10 option. I think he's in that Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott's type tier. Week 5 and onward, he had the second lowest turnover-worthy play rate in the NFL at 1.5%. That is absurd. The lowest was Jane Daniels, which is insane. And like I said, with the weapons, everyone's freaking out about how bad the weapons are in Denver. They just added Evan Ingram. They just added RJ Harvey, who I'm not particularly high on, but he's still a second-round running back. Cortland Sutton had an amazing season last year and just got a massive extension. And isn't an amazing group, but it's definitely underrated based on the amount of panic that people are feeling about it. I think we're going to see Cortland Sutton have a Pro Bowl caliber year. I think that Evan Ingram, as a wide receiver 2, basically, could be on a 1,000-yard watch. He needs to stay healthy, which is always the big if with Evan Ingram, but talent-wise, as a second receiver, you can do it. Not to mention J.K. Dobbins, when he stays healthy, if this is a committee and you give him less reps, J.K. Dobbins is a beast. I'm sick of anyone saying otherwise. His yards per carry, the first couple of years he was in the league, when he was on the Ravens and constantly injured, it was incredible. He was like 6 yards per carry. He goes to the Chargers, has an amazing comeback season, and now he's on the Broncos, and we're acting like he's not a diamond in the rough. This running back room is good. That's just how I feel. But let's keep going. They have the best pass blocking O-line in the league. And this is for a quarterback who loves scrambling. And this is for running backs that are great at catching the pass. Not to mention, their secondary is probably the second best secondary in the league. They have the defensive player of the year, Pat Surtain, obviously. I'm not the biggest fan of Jahdae Barron, but they put a first-round pick into an already elite secondary. They got Talanoa Hufanga as their safety, who is going to be good. Dre Greenlaw is a huge addition. Even with the injury history, I think that makes the Broncos have a top 10 linebacker room. Not to mention, they probably have a top 10 D-line too. John Franklin Myers, Zach Allen. I'm really impressed by them. I'm excited to see what they're going to do this season. Not to mention Nick Bonito. My goodness, I think that Nick Bonito is in for a breakout season, and we're going to see this Broncos D-line go from very good to elite. If the upside for this offense hits, which I am of a strong opinion that it will, they are going to slam the over on this. We're talking 9.5 games. This team won 10 games last season, and they only improved in the offseason. I am honestly shocked they're at 9.5. Let me get into my schedule prediction. They're going to start off real easy. Home versus Titans. There is no way they are losing that. I will bet my mom. At Colts week 2, I think that's a win. At Chargers week 3, I think that's a loss. Week 4 versus Bengals at home, I think that's a win. At Eagles, week 6, I think that's a loss. Versus Jets at home, week 7, I think that's a win. Giants, week 7 at home, I think that's a win. Cowboys, week 8 at home, also a win. Never forget the Mile High City home court advantage, ladies and gentlemen. Week 9 at Texans, I think that's also a win. Week 10 versus Raiders at home, I think that's also a win. At home versus the Chiefs, week 11, I think they pull off the win, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe I'm a spicy guy, but that's where I'm at. The Broncos will go into their Week 12 bye on a 6-game win streak, is my prediction. Week 13, they come out of that bye that they so desperately needed, and they lose to the Commanders away in D.C. They get a win at the Raiders. They get a win at home versus the Packers, Week 15. Week 16, at home versus the Jaguars. I think they get another win. Week 17, at Chiefs. I don't think that they can sweep the Chiefs in the season series. No way, no how. I think week 17, they take a loss there. But week 18, they split the season series with the Chargers with a win at home in week 18. That brings the Denver Broncos to a 13-4 record, which is the highest I am on any team in the league this season. 3.5 wins over their projected win total. I think that this team is going to be really good, man. I could eat my words on this, but if I am going to put an over on any team win total this entire season, I'm doing it for the Broncos. I think the Broncos are going to outperform 9.5 handily, and I think that the AFC West is going to be a very cool division to watch. Let me know what you think. I know that one's probably one of the hotter takes, that the Broncos are a 13-win team. I don't see weaknesses on this team, man. Maybe I'm optimistic. I don't even like the Broncos, but I think that they could be really good. Next team up, we've got the Detroit Lions. Last year was a miraculous year for the Detroit Lions. When they had 16 defensive players on injury reserve in week 14, They were 12-2. Some of those players include, Aiden Hutchinson, Carlton Davis, Alex Anzalone, Aleem McNeil, Brian Branch, Marcus Davenport. I think Aaron Glenn deserves an incredible amount of credit for creating the 5th best defense in the league, lacking so many starters. Even though he got the head coaching job, I don't think he gets enough credit for that. The Lions lineup was so depleted later in the season, the fact that they were able to win 15 games is almost unfathomable to me. But as we all know, Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, replaced with John Morton. Aaron Glenn was replaced with Kelvin Shepard. So my benefit of the doubt meter is way down. This Lions team does have a good lineup. Last year, they outperformed that lineup. And there's still questions about who he's even going to be on the team. I mean, is Zadarius Smith coming back? They should still have an offense. Their defense still has a lot of talent, but I expect some regression from a 15-2 season. Nonetheless, their offense is going to be high-powered. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams is a 1-2 punch. Disgusting. You still got Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield. You still have one of the best O-lines in the league. There's a lot of reason for optimism with this team. There's also some reason to kind of doubt them. Let's just get into my season prediction. I think the Lions, week 1 at Packers, I think that's going to be a loss. Week 2 versus Bears in Detroit, I think that's going to be a win. Week 3 in Baltimore versus the Ravens, I think that's going to be a loss. Versus the Browns at home, I think that's going to be a win, starting off 2-2. At Bengals, week 5, I think the Lions take the win in that. At Chiefs, week 6, maybe a hot take. I think they start to find their footing. I think that's a win. Week 7 versus the Buccaneers, I think that's also a win. They get that week 8 bye. Coming off the bye, they don't slow down. Week 9 versus the Vikings in Detroit, I think that's a win. At Commanders, I think that's a win as well in week 10. Week 11 at Eagles, I think they're going to take the loss in Philadelphia. Week 12 versus the Giants at home, I think that's going to be a win. Versus the Packers, week 13 at home, I think that's a win. Versus the Cowboys, week 14, I think that's going to be a win. At the Rams in LA, week 15, I think that's going to be a loss, stopping the momentum there. Versus the Steelers, week 16, I think they take that win. At Vikings wins week 17, I think that they take a W there. And versus the Bears, week 18, I think they take a loss and the Bears manage to split that season series. That gives the Lions a 12-win season, which is slightly above their 10.5 projected wins. I think that this Lions team is really good. Honestly, I was surprised by the amount of depth that they still have after losing some people to free agency. That brings the Lions to a 12-win season with 5 losses. I think that this team is incredibly talented, but losing the amount of coaching staff that they did is going to hurt. I think that they're going to feel the losses there. I think that the defense and the offense are both going to take a bit of a step back, but I'm saying that they're a 12-win team. That is still a really good team, just not necessarily the Super Bowl-bound Detroit Lions that we know from last year. Let me know your thoughts. I love Dan Campbell. I love the Lions. Really want them to do well, but 12 wins is my prediction. You may have noticed that it looks a little different. It's because it's the next day. Good deductive skills, everybody. Okay, team number 12. We got the Green Bay Packers. Their over-under is 10.5 wins. This is a puzzling team for sure, but every time that there's a puzzling team that has a great head coach, I kind of lean towards the over. Matt LaFleur has proven that he is an exceptional NFL head coach. I mean, year after year, his teams have found a way to make things work, and I'm generally a believer in him. The most important factors for this team are obviously going to be Jordan Love and the wide receiver core. Jordan Love is a mid-tier quarterback in my opinion. He definitely isn't as bad as Twitter highlights would lead you, or Twitter lowlights would lead you to believe. He's also not as good as some Packers fans would believe. I think he's right outside of the top 10. I think that he's solidly mid-tier. And when you say mid nowadays, it's a very negative connotation. Being the 15th, 16th best quarterback in the league is an incredible quarterback. That's a quarterback you can probably win a Super Bowl with. It won't be the reason that you win a Super Bowl, but you can still win with that quarterback. The Jordan Love conversation is very messy, so I'm just going to avoid that, to be honest. But it's important to mention his wide receiving core. Matthew Golden is an amazing pick for the Packers. I'm really glad that they got him. Hopefully he will help how many passes this wide receiver core dropped last year. They were tied for 3rd in the league with 33 drops. Honestly, I was high on this wide receiver core coming into last year. I was generally a Romeo Doubs believer. Hopefully he can keep, his brain healthy and not suffer another concussion. I was a Dontavion Wicks believer. I was a Jaden Reed believer. And everyone kind of underperformed my expectations, especially Jaden Reed. When this wide receiver core disappointed, you had Josh Jacobs, who is still... He led the NFL in rushing yards just a couple years ago. He is a superstar. He deserves a massive contract, and he can carry the load of an offense. This Packers O-line allowed him to do what he needed to do. Without Josh Jacobs, this team does not finish 11-6. Let's not get it twisted. It's important to mention, this Packers O-line is getting reshuffled a bit, but last year, they were the third best pass blocking team, which allowed Jordan Love to try and showcase what he can do. I will say I wasn't a big believer in this Packers defense until the Micah Parsons acquisition. I'll start with the DB core. I expect Xavier McKinney to have a drop-off season. Whenever someone kind of has a blow-up 9 interception season or whatever it was, I anticipate that regressing. I mean, interceptions are such a fluky stat. We've seen it with so many people in previous years. Even though Jair Alexander only played 30% of this team's snaps last year, losing him is huge. I don't know who's going to be the CB1 in this defense. It's currently between Nate Hobbs and Keyshawn Nix, which I can see other teams scheming and taking advantage of incredibly easily. It didn't really stop them last year, though. I mean, they had the 5th highest coverage rate in the NFL last season, so it's not like their passing defense was horrible. It was actually quite good. I just expect it to progress a little bit, especially with losing Jair Alexander, who did help that rating even in his 30% of snaps, and Xavier McKinney, who I don't think is going to have a one-off year, but that will be the peak. My next point was going to be to talk about how the D-line really needs to step up, and that it was a weakness last year. And then they got Micah Parsons, which changes the whole dynamic of this team. They lose Kenny Clark, who's an amazing run defender, but they now have Micah Parsons, and the big problem last year was their pass rush. Now they have Micah Parsons. I was going to say that I don't know how much I trust Lucas Van Ness to step up. Yes, he was always a developmental prospect. He was always not that many snaps in college, but man, he had the traits to just be a round one caliber edge player in the NFL. He hasn't shown it yet necessarily. Now he doesn't necessarily need to. His job just became a whole lot easier. Rashawn Gary's PFF grade has gotten worse every year since 2021. Once again, I don't want to inundate you guys with PFF grades, but there's reason to believe that this Packers D-line was going to get significantly worse, and now they have Micah Parsons. Shout out Brian Gutekunst. That getting Micah Parsons for 2 firsts and Kenny Clark is... They won that trade. The Packers also have a great linebacker core. Having Micah Parsons plus the wild cards surrounding him in a good linebacker core, this defense could be something good, which we weren't saying beforehand. Let me get to the schedule. I was pretty low on this Packers team. The Micah Parsons trade was a huge swinging factor for me, and I will admit that my schedule prediction is now much different than it once was. Week 1 versus Lions at home, I'm going to say the Packers take a W in that. Week 2, home versus Commanders, I think the Packers take a W in that. Week 3 at Browns, W. Week 4 at Cowboys, I think that's a loss right before the bye. Week 5 bye, they're currently 3-1. Bengals in week 6 at home, I think that's a win. Week 7 versus Cardinals at Cardinals, I think that's going to be a win for the Packers. In Pittsburgh versus Steelers week 8, I think that's going to be a loss. Versus the Panthers week 9, I think that's going to be a W. Get that W at home. At home versus Eagles week 10, I'm going to say that's a loss. At Giants week 11, I'm going to say that is a win. Versus Vikings at home week 12, I'm going to say that's a win. At Lions week 13, I'm going to say that's a loss. Versus Bears at home, I'm going to say that's a win in week 14. At Broncos week 15, I'm going to say that's a loss. At Bears week 16, I'm going to say that's a loss as well. Don't think that they can get the season sweep on the Bears. Week 17 versus Ravens at home, I'm going to say that's a win. Big win for the Packers there, beating the Ravens, who are one of my highest teams of the year. And then at Vikings to finish off the season, I'm going to say that's a loss. The Packers are going to finish 10-7 according to me. Their over-under is 10.5. I will say I'm dubious about this offense. I think they could be a better team next year than they could be this year. I don't know if that passing offense is going to come together. And honestly, I have some major questions about their secondary. Micah Parsons plugs the biggest hole on this team for them. And honestly, I had them going 8-9 before the Micah Parsons acquisition. I think that secondary is going to get picked apart, and coaching can only cover so much, but I just really don't think that secondary is going to be able to defend the pass, and I really don't know if the Packers passing game is going to be able to hit that upside this season. Next season, totally different conversation. But I'm a little dubious about them this year, man. I think they're right around that over-under, 10 wins to 11 wins, but we're going to see. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, team number 13, we have the Houston Texans. Their over-under win total is 9.5. The focus for this team is offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. Oh my goodness. They lost Shaq Mason and they lost Laramie Tunsil after CJ Stroud was already one of the most pressured quarterbacks in the league. Losing Shaq Mason and Laramie Tunsil hurts a lot. Right now, I think they're planning on starting their second-round rookie, Arianti Ursary, as their starting left tackle. They just released one of the only reliable offensive line players that they had in Trent Brown. So I think they're competing right up there with the Bengals for the worst O-line in the league. It's frustrating to see a young quarterback struggle and not meet expectations like CJ Stroud did last year. He wasn't as bad as people are saying he was, but that O-line let him down. He was constantly under pressure all season long, and the Texans' solution to that was to make his O-line significantly worse. This could honestly be a disastrous O-line where the offense can't even get off the ground no matter who you have surrounding them. So my ceiling for this team is heavily capped because no matter what, if you face a good pass rush in the playoffs, this team is screwed. Like, let's say that you play a New York Giants type pass rush, which could genuinely be the best pass rush in the league. They have 3 number 1 rushers if Abdul Carter hits. This team doesn't have the ability to stop that. You could play a much worse team like the Giants, and the Giants will probably still beat them because this O-line is so bad. It's a complete liability, and it makes me worry for the future of this team. It almost doesn't matter that Nico Collins could be the best wide receiver on the planet. I fully believe he's right up there. I think he's more talented than CeeDee Lamb. I think it goes Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, those two in whatever order you want to say. Then Nico Collins in terms of talent. That man is unbelievable. If he stays healthy, I think that Nico Collins, for your fantasy teams, could have an unbelievable season. I think that he can hit his upside and be just an absolute game wrecker. If your grandma doesn't know who Nico Collins is now, hopefully she will know by the end of this season. And once again, CJ Stroud, I think, is underrated at this point. He did struggle last year. He didn't hit the upside that people expected for him, but he's not bad. He's definitely not bad. He is still a really good quarterback who I want to hit his upside. It's just that this O-line is going to kill him. Joe Mixon being injured does kind of cast a bit of doubt on everything. I'm hoping he can come back this season, but the reports coming out of that injury are not good. Now we've gotten through the important parts of the offense where it's a lot more doom and gloom than it is sunshine and rainbows. This defense could be the best defense in the league. Full stop. It's a beast. I can't think of the last time that I've seen a team built like this where there is just simply no O-line, but they prioritized defense over and over again, because that's a unique combination. I mean, give me your comps, the historical comps in the comment section, because I'm curious to see what other team has ever been built like this Texans team. They probably have the best edge duo in the league with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. 2 beasts. They're constantly going to be getting pressure on the quarterback. CJ Gardner-Johnson won't be out for the season, so there's a reason to believe that once he's back, the secondary can be great. Derek Stingley, I mean, he doesn't get his flowers enough, but he is incredible. They're in a pretty easy division. Their over-under is still 9.5 wins, which I'm a bit dubious of because of how much I value O-line, but let's get into the schedule. Week 1, Texans at Rams. I'm going to say it's a loss for the Texans. Week 2 versus Buccaneers at home. I'm going to say that the Texans win that one. I expect the Buccaneers to start off pretty slow without Tristan Wirfs. Week 3 at Jacksonville. I'm going to say that's a loss for the Texans. That one's going to hurt for sure. Jacksonville has to win at least a couple games this season, so I think that's going to be one of them. Week 4 versus Titans, I'm going to say that's a win for the Texans. At Ravens, Week 5, I'm going to say that's a loss. They get that Week 6 bye, off to a mediocre start for the season. Week 7 at Seahawks, I'm going to say that's a loss. Versus 49ers at home, I'm going to say that's a win. You might realize during the schedule prediction that the Texans' wins and losses are kind of all over the place. I expect this team to be pretty fluky given how it's made. Versus the Broncos at home, I'm going to say it's a loss in Week 9 for the Texans. Week 10 versus Jaguars at home, I'm going to say that that's a win. They split the season series with the Jaguars, but they do sweep the Titans this season. I'm going to say Week 11 at Titans is going to be another W for them. Versus Bills at home, I think that they take the win. To be honest, I don't think that the Bills' pass rush is good enough to take advantage of that bad Texans O-line. I think it's going to be a shootout, and I like the Texans secondary over the Bills secondary, personally. Week 13 at Colts, I'm going to say that's a loss. Coming off a huge win versus Buffalo, I'm thinking they're going to come right back down to earth versus the Colts the next week. Week 14 at Chiefs, that's going to be a tough one to win. I'm going to say that's a loss for the Texans. Versus Cardinals at home, Week 15, I'm going to say that that's a win. Versus Raiders at home, Week 16, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 17 at Chargers, I'm going to say it's a loss. And then finally at home versus the Colts, I'm going to say they split the season series and that they win that final game, which is slightly below their over-under. When I look at the talent on this roster, this team is going to be fun to watch. That Texans defense is going to be gnarly. That O-line is so horrendously bad. I was talking earlier about potential comps. This kind of reminds me of old Patriots teams, but you have C.J. Stroud instead of Tom Brady, where Tom Brady in those 2019, where we lost first round versus the Titans, that defense was still gnarly, but there were no weapons. C.J. Stroud will have better weapons than that, but there was no O-line. I don't know how much I trust C.J. to get the ball out the way that Tom Brady did. I mean, that's a tall task. I think that this offense will stall. I think they're going to be slightly worse than we expect them to be, and I'm not going to take the over on them. But let me know what you guys think. I'm excited to see this team. This is one of the most interesting teams in the NFL this season. Next up, team number 14 is the Indianapolis Colts. Their over-under is set at 7.5. This Colts team is very interesting to me. I am fascinated by them, and I honestly think that their range of outcomes could be massive. Because the quarterback situation is so bad in Indianapolis, people kind of underrate the other aspects of their team. I think they have a great group of weapons. I'm a big fan of Josh Downs. I'm a big fan of Michael Pittman Jr. I think he had a broken back last season. I think he's going to come back bigger, better than ever. Alec Pierce is a fantastic deep threat. And not to mention they have Jonathan Taylor, and this O-line is just stacked. Bernard Raymond and Quentin Nelson are going to hold down the left side of this line. It's a top 5 O-line for run blocking at the very least. We've seen the type of season that Jonathan Taylor can have with good O-line blocking. I'm just a little worried that the passing game's not going to round into form for this Colts team. I've always had a soft spot for Daniel Jones because he's been stuck in New York where his wide receiver one has been Sterling Shepard. And that's a little unfair to any quarterback, especially with the O-line that he had to deal with. He's now in a much better situation. He has good weapons and a good O-line. I also just don't know how much I believe in him to get this offense going. It'll be better than Anthony Richardson, at the very least. Anthony Richardson, and you've heard probably every superlative about Anthony Richardson that you can imagine in the last few months, but he's one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. The upside is undeniably there. No one is going to question the upside of Anthony Richardson. I don't know if he's mentally prepared for it. I don't know him personally, obviously. But some of the interview questions that he's had, being honest about just being too tired to be in for a full drive, his pocket presence, everything else, it doesn't seem like he's grown very much since being in the NFL. And what we've seen is not good. I will also say that the Colts brutally mismanaged the pick of Anthony Richardson. He was always a developmental prospect. I don't think he should have started his rookie year. Him getting injured his rookie year and then coming out and being horrible his sophomore year is not encouraging. I think you should have sat him his rookie year. I think that you should have spent some time smoothing out some of his rougher edges and then bringing him in his sophomore year for his first start. His junior year, he's getting benched. So who's to say? This defense is very interesting. It's full of wild cards. Will Laiatu Latu take the next jump and become a number one edge rusher? That's one of the things to watch for this season. Samson Ibuka tore his Achilles last year, but was a beast in 2023, although he is now 30 years old. I think if JT Tuimoloau and Tyquan Lewis can emerge as NFL starting options, this D-line could also be pretty gnarly, especially aside DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner being one of the best D-tackle duos in the league. If anyone else can kind of round to form around them, this D-line could be something really good. Could definitely round to the upside and be a top 10 D-line this year. Now, the secondary is also a bit of a wild card. You're going to notice a bit of a trend with this Colts team. The secondary is dependent on Charvarius Ward, who had a down season last season because of the tragic loss of his daughter, which, I mean, I don't even I'm not one to be able to speak on how horrible of a situation that is. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it, but there's reason to believe that Charvarius Ward had a down year and will round back to form this year, but we also need to see it. Hopefully a change of scenery can help him move on, because I can't even imagine the mental struggles he's going through upon that tragic loss. Cam Bynum was also added to this team. He was a good safety last year for the Minnesota Vikings, and we're going to see how he rounds to the Shane Steichen defense. Because Danny Dimes is at the helm, I'm going to say that this offense actually surpasses expectations at least a bit. If Anthony Richardson sees the field anytime this season, I have no idea what this team's going to be. This is one of my least confident predictions. I went back and forth through this schedule, redoing it. This was probably the team that I changed my opinion on over and over again. And I'm not going to lie, the end result is kind of middle of the pack, probably a little lukewarm. So I'm just going to go ahead and read the schedule, and you guys can let me know what you think. Okay, so the Colts schedule prediction. Let's get it. Week 1 versus the Dolphins at home, I'm going to say it's a W. Week 2 versus the Broncos at home, I'm going to say it's an L. Week 3 at Titans, I'm going to say that that's an L, unfortunately. Week 4 at Rams, I'm going to say that that's an L as well. Week 5 versus the Raiders at home, I'm going to say that's a W. Week 6 versus the Cardinals, I'm going to say that that's a W. Week 7 at Chargers, I'm going to say that's an L. Versus Titans at home, I think they split the season series. I think that's going to be a W. Steelers, Week 9 away game, I'm going to say that that's a W for the Colts. They're going to get that win in Pittsburgh. Week 10 at Falcons, I'm going to say that's a loss. They finally get that bye in Week 11, but they come off that bye to a tough matchup at Chiefs. Week 12, I'm going to say that's a loss. Versus Texans at home, I'm going to say that's a W for the Colts. Week 14 at Jaguars, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 15 at Seahawks, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 16 versus the 49ers at home, I'm going to say that's a win. Versus the Jaguars at home, Week 17, I'm going to say that's a win. And then Week 18 at Texans, I think they split the season series. I'm going to say it's a loss for the Colts. That brings them to a 8-9 record, slightly over the over-under. But once again, if Danny Dimes can get this offense going, which I believe there's potential for, if this edge group can round out and become an elite D-line, this team can absolutely hit the upside. People forget how good they've been in years past with these similar weapons. This team is not as bad as I think people are hyping them up to be. Even if they don't hit their upside, I think the floor is relatively high with this team, although I will say that Anthony Richardson's presence in that quarterback room muddles about any prediction I could make. I feel pretty confident about them hitting 8 wins, but I mean, we're going to see. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Okay, team number 15, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their over-under is 7.5 wins. I will say I am low on this team. Liam Cohen is a first-year head coach, and although he was very good for the Buccaneers last year, and he's generally been good in his coaching career, I'm not sure how much I believe in him as a head coach. We haven't seen it yet, so it's more of a wild card than a negative asset, but I just don't know how much to believe. This coaching staff in general, I'm a bit dubious of. I don't know much about Grant Udinski, but he's coming from Minnesota. Anthony Campanelli coming from Green Bay after being in Miami for 4 years. I will say in general, I'm not over the moon with this coaching staff, which is one of the reasons why I'm lower on this team. Grant Udinski and Anthony Campanelli, in my opinion, both have a lot to prove as coordinators. I also want to say I don't think that Doug Peterson was the reason for this team underperforming. I get the firing. I get wanting to try something new. I can't say that I put the blame on him. I'll also say I'm low on Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that he has gotten no help the way that Jacksonville fans and NFL fans in general say that he's gotten no help. I think that Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones was a good offensive set, and we didn't see a top 10 offense out of it. Now he has Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. There's no excuse if this team doesn't flash to the upside, at least on the offensive end. I don't know how many more excuses we can make for Trevor Lawrence before we start saying, okay, it's time to reevaluate this quarterback position. That being said, he does have an excuse for this O-line. This is a bottom 5 O-line in the league, and I can't emphasize the importance of O-line enough. When I try and predict these, I think of the O-line a lot. I think of the O-line as probably being the second most important position group in the NFL behind the quarterback position. And not only is the talent that they have on their O-line bad, they also lost Mitch Morse, who was one of the only starting caliber players that they would have had on this O-line. Not to mention this running back group has a loss of step. Travis Etienne is not what he once was. I'm not the biggest believer in Byshel Tootin or Tank Bigsby. So the weapons are there. I don't know if anything else is there for this offense. I'm kind of projecting the downside for this offense. Now we go into the defense. I'm also not the biggest believer of Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker was ineffective in most games he was in. He had a PFF grade lower than 70 in all but 4 games last season, which you can argue is a bit nitpicky. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to be bad. But once again, you could have had Aiden Hutchinson. You could have had a game wrecker in that draft, and you took Trayvon Walker because you got a little bit too carried away with the traits, the physical attributes. I don't think his game is refined enough to be considered a major positive for this defense, to be honest. So I don't see Trayvon Walker dragging this defense to something more than what they are. The Jags had a pass rush win rate of 27%, which was the lowest in the NFL last season. I can't say it's going to get much better this season. I mean, Josh Hines-Allen will be one of the anchors of this defense, one of the only good players on this defense, so he'll continue to be a game wrecker the way that he is, but I just hope that Trayvon Walker can be something more than what I think he'll be. The secondary changed a bit, but I don't think that this team improved as much as their over-under saying. 7.5 wins is a lot. You're betting the over on that? That's almost a playoff team. I don't see that upside for this Jacksonville team. They still have so many holes. Let's get into the schedule. I'm going to say week 1 versus Panthers at home. I think Jacksonville takes a loss there. At Bengals, week 2, I'm going to say that they lose again. Texans at home, I think they grind out a win. Not going to start off on a 3-game losing streak, but 1-2. Week 4 at 49ers, I'm going to say that's a loss as well. 49ers should be good earlier in the season when their team is healthy. Versus Chiefs week 5, I think that that's a loss even though it's at home. That is a tough start to the schedule, I will say. I think that they start 1-4. Versus Seahawks week 6, I think they take the win at home. Versus Rams week 7 at home, I think that they're going to take the loss there. They get that week 8 bye. They come out of the bye and they play the Raiders in Las Vegas. I think they take the L there as well. Week 10 at Texans, I think they split the season series and lose there. Week 11 versus Chargers at home, I think they take the W. Week 12 versus Cardinals in Arizona, I think that's going to be a loss for the Jaguars. Week 13 in Tennessee versus the Titans, I think they're going to take the L. Week 14 versus Colts at home, I think that they're going to win in Jacksonville, take a W from the Indianapolis Colts there. Week 15 at home versus the Jets, I think that's going to be a W. Week 16 at Broncos Stadium, I think that that's going to be an L. Week 17, I think they split the season series with the Colts and lose. And then week 18 versus the Titans at home, I think they split the season series as well there and get the W. That's going to bring them to 6 wins, 11 losses. That is 1.5 wins under their over-under. Originally, I had them a bit lower. I decided that that might be a bit much to have them as like a 5-win, 4-win team. I think they had to get relatively unlucky to lose as many games as they did last year. I can't really bet on them being as bad as they were last year. There obviously have been some improvements with this team. Just not enough for me to believe in them, man. I hope that they can exceed this 6-win total that I'm projecting for them. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I think they're a 6-win team. Okay, my 16th team is the Kansas City Chiefs with an over-under of 11.5 wins. Here we go again, man. This team will always be. They're inevitable. They're going to be good every single year. Based off of last season, I think people are under the impression that this is an amazing Chiefs roster. I want to pump the brakes a bit. I don't think that this Chiefs team is an amazing roster. I think it's good. I don't think it's amazing. Patrick Mahomes will always be Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo will always be themselves. And for that reason, it's almost impossible to predict this team to fail at any level because all 3 of them are incredible. But they did just lose Joe Thuney. And right now, I believe that Kingsley Sumataya, I hope I'm saying that right, is projected to be their left guard. That's going to be a liability. They did draft Josh Simmons, who in my opinion is the best tackle prospect in this draft if he stays healthy. I think he would have gone above Membu, above Campbell. I think he probably would have gone 4th to the Patriots if he had stayed healthy because this man is unbelievable. And when I saw his projections in the draft, I just thought, please don't let like the Eagles or another great team get him at the end of the first, and then the Chiefs got him. I think that they have a lockdown tackle for the next few years at the very least, and he really does help the state of this O-line. It's not terrible because I believe that Josh Simmons is going to have a great first season. For weapons, Rashee Rice is out for 6 games. When he comes back, he has unbelievable chemistry with Pat Mahomes. I mean, we saw what he was capable of when he was playing with Pat Mahomes. Xavier Worthy was amazing in the playoffs last year, so I don't know what the expectations are for him this season. I'm a little bit lower on him than narrative, I feel like. I think he's still going to be a wide receiver 2 when Rice comes back. But outside of that, you still have Hollywood Brown. You still have Travis Kelce. This weapons group is pretty good. I think you can expect this offense to be better than it was last season. They dealt with so many injuries and got some just actual black magic luck in order to get the record that they did. Last year, they were the second-ranked defense in the NFL. I think every year that you have Steve Spagnuolo as your defensive coordinator, you are going to have a top defense. There's almost no point in talking about the defense. Chris Jones will be Chris Jones. Trent McDuffie will be Trent McDuffie. Steve Spagnuolo will find a way to do whatever he needs to do, and they have the deepest linebacker room in the league. So this defense is going to be good, as always. Let's get into the schedule. Week 1 versus the Chargers, that Friday game. I'm going to say that they take the L versus the Chargers. I believe that game's in Brazil. Week 2 versus the Eagles in Arrowhead, I think they lose again. The Eagles were so much better than them in the Super Bowl last year. I think that they take 2 L's in the first 2 weeks of the season. We're going to see. Hopefully, I don't think that the panic police will be out yet for the Chiefs, but they will be able to rebound and play the Giants in week 3. They're going to New York. That's going to be a pretty easy W for the Chiefs, in my opinion. Week 4 doesn't get much easier. The start to the schedule is just brutal. They play the Ravens at home. The Ravens can't seem to beat them no matter how high I am on the Ravens this season. I think that the Chiefs still get the win in Arrowhead versus that stacked Baltimore team. Week 5, they're playing Jacksonville in Jacksonville. I think that they're going to take a win there. Week 6 versus the Lions in Arrowhead. I think they take the L. I'm projecting they're going to start the season 3-3, which will be disappointing for a lot of Chiefs fans. But, I mean, man, this schedule starts off tough, but I think the Chiefs will round to form. Week 7 versus the Raiders at home. I think that's a W for the Chiefs. Week 8 versus the Commanders at home. I think that's a win for the Chiefs. Week 9 at Bills. I think the Bills finally get a win in Buffalo. I think the Bills can finally beat the Chiefs. It's a regular season game. Hopefully this happens again in the playoffs. But week 9, I think the Chiefs finally take a loss versus the Bills because it's right before their bye week. They get the bye right after that huge Bills game. They come back and they have to play Denver in Denver. I'm going to say that's an L as well. Week 12 versus the Colts at home. I'm going to say it's a W. Week 13 in Dallas versus the Cowboys. I'm going to say it's a win for the Chiefs. Week 14 versus the Texans at home. I'm going to say that is a win for the Chiefs. Versus the Chargers, once again in Arrowhead. I'm going to say that's a win for the Chiefs. Week 16, they're going to play Tennessee in Tennessee. I'm going to say it's a win for the Chiefs. Week 17, at home versus the Broncos. I'm going to say it's a win for the Chiefs. I think they split the season series. And Week 18, in Las Vegas versus the Raiders. I'm going to say that is a win for the Chiefs, bringing their record to 12-5 on the season, slightly above the 11.5 over-under. I don't think that this is an absurd opinion to have that the Chiefs are going to win 12 games. I think they got a little lucky to win the 14 that they did last season. We're going to see. Happy to be proven wrong here. The Chiefs remind me of my Patriots when they were in dynasty mode. Hopefully the Chiefs this year can stop doing that. Curious to see what you guys think. I think that this offense could stall a bit. We have seen Patrick Mahomes stall a little bit in the past few years. This defense will be good no matter what, and the coaching staff will be able to figure it out. So I think 12 wins is a pretty safe bet. Sticking in the AFC West, we have the Las Vegas Raiders with an over-under of 6.5 wins. I think people are underestimating how good this offense could be. Geno Smith is underrated. I think that he's a mid-tier quarterback. I think he's proven a lot in Seattle, especially with the horrible pass protection that he had in years past. Accomplishing what he managed to accomplish, in my opinion, it's pretty impressive. He's now paired with Pete Carroll again, which I think will improve his production even more. Look at the weapons in this offense. You have Brock Bowers, who is a superstar, could go for 1,400 yards this season, do something crazy. You have Jacoby Myers, who I think is one of the most underrated X-wide receivers in the league. Amazing contested catch threat. He can do a little bit of everything. And you have Ashton Genty, who, once again, if he comes in, shines to the upside, you're talking about a top 5 running back, potentially. I mean, I know that's a pretty high projection for Genty, but either way, the surrounding weapons for this cast are pretty good. Not to mention, I think people are underrating the O-line. Jackson Powers-Johnson, I think he can shine to the upside. I think he's going to have a great season. Colton Miller is one of the best left tackles in the league, so you have protection on the blind side. Jordan Meredith has been an adequate starter every year that he's played, and I'm excited to see him finally play at center. Dylan Parham, I think, can also surprise to the upside. I think that this group has a floor of being about the 20th O-line in the league, but could shine and could be a top 10 group, especially depending on how Jackson Powers-Johnson plays. So, I mean, looking at it, this offense doesn't have many holes. I mean, there's question marks, but I don't think that they have these massive holes on offense that you can be scared of. I cannot say the same for their defense. Losing Christian Wilkins is huge, and I honestly don't really understand that. There were some weird stories coming out about like character issues. I don't know how much I subscribe to that. Max Crosby needed help so very badly. Christian Wilkins was right there. I was excited and expecting him to have a massive season this season, and now he's not there. So the D-line went from being a potential strength to now I would consider a weakness. They're replacing him with Jonah Lalu, who's one of the worst D tackles in the league. The downgrade cannot be overstated. And then this secondary, man, what is going on? I want to say Darian Porter is one of my guys of this draft. I think he's going to be a stud, but I also think he's a developmental prospect. He started off as wide receiver, made the transition to cornerback, and his cornerback tape was elite at Iowa State. I think that he can continue to grow as a quarterback, but we only saw limited snaps with him. I think that he's kind of developmental, even though he's an older prospect. He has unbelievable athleticism, one of the highest RAS scores in history, but also for this draft. I'm a huge fan of him in general, but you're starting him as a third-round rookie, as your cornerback one? Wait, what? You have him opposite of Eric Stokes. I think he could be better than Eric Stokes, like pretty much right out the gate. But what are we talking about, gentlemen? You're in a division with the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Broncos, and you're walking out maybe one of the worst secondaries in the league. This team is just gonna get smashed with the passing game. I don't see how they can stop it. There's no one good in the secondary right away. I'm high on Darian Porter, but I don't know how much I believe in him in his rookie year. This is going to be a glaring weakness all season long, and they're going to get picked on. Let's get into the schedule. I'm excited for this Raiders team in general. Week 1 at Patriots. I'm going to say it's a loss for the Raiders. Week 2 versus the Chargers at home. I think they take the win. I think they managed to grind one out versus the Chargers. Let me know if you think that that's possible. Week 3 in Washington versus the Commanders. I think that that's going to be an L. Week 4 versus the Bears in Las Vegas. I think that's going to be an L. Week 5 in Indianapolis versus the Colts. I'm going to say that that's an L. Week 6 at home versus the Titans. I think that's going to be a W. Week 7 versus the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I'm going to say it's an L. They get that Week 8 bye. Week 9 versus the Jaguars in Las Vegas. I'm going to say that's a win for the Raiders. Week 10 versus the Broncos in Denver. I'm going to say it's an L. Week 11 versus the Cowboys in Las Vegas. I'm going to say that that's a W. Week 12 versus the Browns in Las Vegas. I'm going to say that that is also a W. Week 13 versus the Chargers in Los Angeles. I'm going to say it's an L. Week 14 versus the Broncos. I think the Broncos get the season sweep. I think that they're going to win there. Week 15 at Eagles. That's got to be a loss. Ain't no other way. Week 16 in Houston versus the Texans. I think that's a loss as well. Week 17 versus the Giants at home. I mean, the floodgates are open. I'm projecting that that's a loss as well. And then week 18, they are going to finish on a very sour note versus the Chiefs in Las Vegas. I think that's also a loss, bringing them to a 5-12 record. This Raiders team is so poorly built right now. I do believe in the upside of this offense. I do believe that they could prove me absolutely wrong with this, and if this offense gets humming and gets going, they could absolutely do something. But the holes in this defense are so glaring. I can't see them stopping certain teams with even mediocre offenses. I think can just walk all over them. You're putting a lot of pressure on not unproven pieces, but pieces with a lot to prove to shine to the upside to make this team work. And I'm just not a believer in that. Hopefully Darian Porter can come in and win Defensive Rookie of the Year, because that's what they're going to need to be a sufficient team. Hopefully I'm wrong on this Raiders team. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. All right, team number 18, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. Their over-under is 9.5 wins. You got to start off the Chargers conversation by talking about how big of a loss Rashawn Slater is, sadly. I had such big expectations for this Chargers team, and a lot of it was around them being a legit rushing offense. and now I think I have to temper my own expectations with that. This O-line would have been top 10. It would have been probably the best tackle duo in the league up there. I mean, I think that the Bucs at full strength give you a good run for your money with that. But now they're out there looking for answers. I believe they're starting Trey Pipkins. On top of that, now that you don't have Rashawn Slater, who might be the best left tackle in the league, you also have to worry about Mekhi Becton. You need him to stay healthy. You need him to be consistent. You need him to be good. And, he was great last year. Can he stay healthy this year? It becomes a question when it should have been a guaranteed, and it stinks, and I am sorry, Chargers fans. Y'all deserved better. That being said, I am still high on this offense. Ladd McConkey is, in my opinion, already one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. He had the 5th best yards per route run as a rookie, only improved as the season went on, and finished so incredibly strong. I think the Chargers are in a blessed position where they have a locked-in wide receiver 1. The stats would support that. The production would support that. I think that Ladd McConkey should be in the top 10 conversation for wide receivers in the league. Outside of him, I believe Quentin Johnston has a concussion. Trey Harris will hopefully be a factor by the end of the year. Right now, it's just sort of the Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen show. There's a bit of crossover with skill sets there. Hopefully it doesn't diminish Ladd's production too much. Hopefully that Chargers offense stays humming. But, I mean, we're going to see. I trust the coaching staff there to be able to figure out a way to combine both those wide receivers in a way that amplifies their production. Outside of just the passing weapons, Amarian Hampton is great. I think that he has the ability to be a bell cow in this offense. Who knows what Najee Harris is up to, but Amarian Hampton will face more of an uphill battle now that Rashawn Slater's gone, but I still expect him to have a big rookie year. Overall, I'm still high in the offense despite the injury to Rashawn Slater, but we will see. Justin Herbert, once again, I'd say right outside the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, probably number 5 or number 6. This defense is also pretty damn good. I will say that the D-line is held almost entirely afloat by Khalil Mack, who is old, who was amazing last year, but you're going to need him to continue to be amazing for this D-line to be something. Losing Poona Ford and losing Joey Bosa hurts, but I understand it. It just means that there's even more pressure on Khalil Mack now. If he goes down with an injury like he has in the past, that is a rough situation on that D-line. There's room to be nervous about that. That being said, they also lost multiple pieces in their secondary. I think there's reason to be somewhat optimistic. You still have Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still, which, wow, especially Still, what an incredible drafting job getting them in the 5th and 6th round, I believe. They have the ability to be starters in this league for a long time, especially Tarheeb Still. I'm projecting that he's going to have an amazing second year. I'm really hoping that we start considering him in not Pro Bowl necessarily, but I think we're going to see the upside with him soon. That doesn't even mention Derwin James, probably one of the best run support defensive backs in the league, if not the best. The secondary is still good, is still going to defend the run really well. I think that there's reason to believe in the upside of this secondary, but they still lost multiple pieces in the offseason, and I think that they're probably going to start off worse at the beginning of this season. Happy to get into the schedule now. Week 1 versus the Chiefs in Brazil. I'm going to say that's a W for the Chargers. Think they get the Week 1 jitterbugs out of the way, come home with the win in that. I think that in Week 2, in Las Vegas versus the Raiders, I think that's an L. At home versus the Broncos, I think that's a W. In New York versus the Giants, I think that's a W. At home versus the Commanders, I think that's a W. In Miami versus the Dolphins, I think they're going to take the L. The Dolphins need to win at least some games this year. Week 7 at home versus the Colts, I think that's a W. Home versus the Vikings in Week 8, I think that's a W. In Tennessee versus the Titans, I think that's a W. In Los Angeles versus the Steelers, I think that's a W in Week 10. In Jacksonville versus the Jaguars, I think they lose there. I'm kind of projecting that they lose to some bad teams. I expect this team to be a little bit fluky, but I mean, we'll see what happens. They have that late Week 12 bye. They come off that bye to an easy matchup at home versus the Raiders. I think that's a W. They play the Eagles in Los Angeles Week 14. I think that's going to be an L. They then go to Chiefs Kingdom and play them in Week 15. I'm going to say that's an L. Hard to beat the Chiefs at home. I think that in Week 16, they're going to go to Dallas, and they're going to beat the Cowboys in their own stadium. Week 17, you're home versus the Texans. I think that's going to be a W. And Week 18, you're playing the Broncos in Denver. I think that's going to be an L. Hard to adapt to the altitude there. That gives the Chargers an 11-6 record on the season. That is a game and a half above their over-under. I'm still high on this Chargers team. I think Jim Harbaugh has done an amazing job coaching here. I think that through the woodworks, I generally look at this team optimistically, that some of their supplementary role players can come in, play strong. It's just, I think this could have been a 12-13 win team with Rashawn Slater. I think that Rashawn Slater's absence will definitely be felt. If this team underperforms the 11-win projection that I have for them, I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, I think 11 wins might be a bit high. If I were to go back and edit this for the 15th time, I might take the Chargers down to 10 or 9, but I still think that this is a really good team with a really good quarterback, a really good coaching staff, and a lot of reasons to be optimistic. But let me know what you guys think. All right, next up is the Los Angeles Rams with an over-under of 9.5 wins. First things first, this offense has massive potential. I think Matthew Stafford has generally gotten underrated. With a clean pocket, he can still be an elite quarterback. He can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I thought this was a really good stat. The Rams won 7 out of 8 games when they had a 62.5 PFF pass blocking grade, which isn't even good. That is just slightly above horrible. But it shows that when Stafford can actually get protection in the pocket, he can still be an incredibly good quarterback. Keeping him healthy and giving him time, you have a gem. However, when they were below a 62.5 grade, they lost 7 out of 11 games. So will this team actually have a good O-line? They added Shelton Coleman at center. This is a big year for Steve Avila. I am tentatively optimistic. Alaric Jackson was pretty good last year. Kevin Dotson's good. It's not going to be a great O-line, but it might be serviceable enough for this team to be something great. Not to mention that the Rams have one of the best wide receiver corps in the NFL. Puka Nacua is a superstar. I mean, if you played fantasy this year, you understand how heavily people are betting on his upside, and they just added Devontae Adams, who has been productive even as he's gotten older. So yeah, man, anticipate the upside with this offense. There's a lot of reason to believe that this offense is going to be better than we've seen in years past because they actually have a semi-healthy O-line right now. On the defensive side, we kind of delve into the mediocrity of this team. Their defensive line is not bad because Jared Verse is there. Jared Verse is a savior for this team. What he did last year was legitimately not even just defensive rookie of the year caliber. It was defensive player of the year caliber at times. If he can repeat that, this D-line is going to continue to be okay, but Kobe Turner is also going to need to show up. The secondary is purely mediocre. It'll be all right. They have a pretty good safety duo. The point of emphasis here is that this offense, in my opinion, could be something special. We could be looking at a top 5, a top 3 offense in the league if Stafford can stay healthy, if his O-line stays healthy, and if Puka stays healthy, which is a lot of ifs. A lot of this is health-based, but the talent is there. Excited to get into the schedule for this one. Rams, week 1 versus Texans. The Rams are going to be at home for that one. I'm going to say it's a W for the Rams. Rams at Titans, week 2. I'm going to say it's a W for the Rams. Week 3 in Philly versus the Eagles. I'm going to say it's a loss. I don't think I could take any team in the NFL in Philadelphia to beat the Eagles. Come on, man. The Rams at home versus the Colts, I'm going to say that that is a win. The Rams at home versus the 49ers, I'm also going to say that that's a win. The Rams in Baltimore versus the Ravens, I'm going to say that's a loss in week 6. Week 7, I'm going to say that the Rams in Jacksonville pick up a W versus the Jaguars. They get that week 8 bye. Week 9, the Rams play the Saints at home. I'm going to say that that is a win. Week 10, the Rams at San Francisco. I'm going to say that's a loss. The Rams week 11 home versus Seahawks. I'm going to say it's a win. Week 12 Rams versus Buccaneers, home game for the Rams. I'm going to say that's a win for the Rams. Week 13 they play Carolina in Carolina. I'm going to say that's a W for the Rams. Week 14 the Rams at Cardinals. I'm going to say it's a loss for the Rams. Cardinals are a feisty team, don't sleep on them. Week 15, Rams versus Lions. Rams being at home, I'm going to say Rams win that one. Rams in Seattle versus the Seahawks, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 17, Rams at Falcons, I'm also going to say that's a loss. And then week 18, I think that the Rams managed to split the season series with the Cardinals. They win at home in the last game of the season, bring them to a 11-6 record, which is 1.5 games above their over-under. When I make predictions like this at the beginning of the season, I end up reflecting and thinking about coaching staffs a lot. This Rams defense could be horrible in the wrong hands, but they have Sean McVay at the helm. So I'm of the belief that this defense is going to perform to the upside, where it'll be mediocre. And if it can be mediocre, the rest of the team can carry this. This offense has the potential to be elite, and I don't want to sleep on that. I think an 11-win season for this Rams team is more than reasonable as long as, injuries don't fly off the rails. So before the season starts, before Matthew Stafford's back gives out, I'm predicting 11 wins, but I could obviously be incredibly wrong about that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. All right, next up, the Miami Dolphins. Over-under being 7.5 wins. Let's just get this right off the bat. This team is going to be a disaster. That's my hot take of the season. Isn't this my hottest take? It's up there. I want nothing to do with this team. This is the most confident I feel betting an under for any team in the NFL this season. 7.5. I am ready to eat my words, and I want to see how this ages. I would do almost anything. I would take almost any bet saying that they go under 7.5. Tua, now more than ever, and possibly more than any other quarterback in the league, needs a legitimate offensive line. With the injuries that he's sustained, the serious concussions, and the nature of this offense, he needs an offensive line. And Teron Armstead just retired. Jonas Avenea is going to be their starting left guard, who is a second-round rookie. This is possibly the worst pass-blocking group in the league. I know I bring out a lot of hyperbolic language, and, I feel like it's mostly deserved when I'm talking about the Bengals O-line. This Dolphins O-line could be tragic. And I hope that it's not. I really hope that Tua remains healthy for the whole season. I would never wish ill upon him, and I hope that my prediction doesn't come true. But Tua's going to take some hits this season, man. And what he said in the offseason about training to protect his head more, I'm happy about that. What have I seen on the field? Not that. So I'm really dubious that Tua can stay healthy. I'm really dubious Tua's not going to take an absolute shot in one of these games. And I'm really dubious that this Dolphins team can survive or even be adequate without him. I mean, your backup is Zach Wilson and then Quinn Ewers. And, as much as I want to believe that there's a Zach Wilson breakout somewhere in there, I think anyone that plays for the Jets deserves a lot of sympathy. I don't see it. I think the conversation doesn't start and end there, but I mean, we can talk about Tyreek Hill, attitude problems. He isn't a captain for the first time since he's been with the Miami Dolphins. He got his captainship revoked, which is always great to see from probably your best player. But is he even your best player? Probably still, but he's lost a step. I mean, genuinely, in some of the games last year, he just didn't look the same. And for Tyreek Hill's play style, he needs to be very fast. He's still one of the fastest people in the NFL. He's still unbelievable, but he's not quite what he was. I think we're starting to see him start to decline. The first year that Mike McDaniels actually started scheming with these players, the league didn't know what to do. That offense was highly potent. Having as much speed as they did was so hard to stop. But it seems like ever since that one scheme worked, they haven't really adjusted or adapted. And for that reason, Mike McDaniels is one of my hottest hot seat coaches, in my opinion. I don't think he's adapted to the level that this team has needed him to. I love the guy. He's very funny. And I do like the style of the offense. But I think that his coaching is now a big question. Their offensive coaching is a big question. Their D-line could be something, but is constantly injured. And I honestly believe that their secondary just got considerably worse. I think that Minkah Fitzpatrick is not nearly as good as Jalen Ramsey is, and they just lost Jalen Ramsey, so they don't have a very good cornerback room at all anymore. Actually, one of the worst in the NFL. When I look at this team, we haven't seen this offense be elite in years. They've had declining stock for a while, and their defense is not looking great. I don't see where the optimism for this team could be, would be, should be. I don't want to get carried away and listen to my gut too much. I do look at over-unders and try to be somewhat fair to them. Vegas definitely knows better than I do when it comes to predicting these things, but I can barely see this Dolphins team doing anything this year. So let's get into it. At Colts, week 1, I think the Dolphins take a loss. Versus the Patriots at home, I think the Dolphins get a W. Week 2 W. Good for them. Happy for them. When Tua is healthy, I think this team can be decent. Week 3 at Bills, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 4 versus Jets at home, I'm going to say that that's a win for the Dolphins. Home for the Dolphins. It's going to be in Miami. Week 5 in Carolina versus the Panthers, I'm going to say that's a loss for the Dolphins. Week 6 versus the Chargers, Miami at home, I'm going to say it's a win for Miami. Week 7 at Browns, I'm going to say that's also a win. Once again, when Tua is healthy, I think this team can be decent. I'm going to predict, where are we right now? Week 7, I don't know how much longer he lasts than that. I don't want to be right, and I don't want to predict an injury. I just can't see the O-line protecting him for that long. Week 8 at Falcons, that's going to be a loss. Week 9, home versus the Rams, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 10 versus the Bills at home, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 11 versus the Commanders, Miami at home, I'm going to say it's a loss. Bye week 12. Week 13, after a 4-game skid and a bye, I'm going to say that the Saints lose to the Miami Dolphins at home. The Miami Dolphins pick up that Week 13 win. Week 14 at Jets, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 15 at Steelers, I'm going to say it's a loss. Miami at home versus the Bengals, I'm going to say it's a loss. Buccaneers, Week 17, I'm going to say that's another loss for Miami. And then finally, Week 18 at Patriots, I'm going to say that's also a loss. They finish on a massive losing streak. I think that they finish this season 5-12. Honestly, if I listen to my gut, I would say even worse. That is how low I am on this team. I don't think they have the coaching. I think the offense is falling apart. I don't think that they supplemented this team in a way that could make this offense functional. And I don't think that the defense is there. There's no storyline I can spin myself where the Dolphins are a 7.5 win team. That's just me, though. Feel free to tell me that I'm wrong. Feel free to laugh at me when I am wrong because, predictions are predictions. But I feel really confident about this one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Next up is the Minnesota Vikings with an over-under of 9.5. Let's get this out of the way. I'm low on J.J. McCarthy, therefore I'm low on this team. The meteoric rise in draft stock did not make too much sense to me, admittedly, and hey, disagree with me all you want. I didn't see it. And you can nitpick his tape to specific downs where he was important and where he had to make a certain throw, and he made that certain throw. Fantastic. I think that J.J. McCarthy hasn't proven enough to me at the college level to believe in him as an NFL pro. He tore his meniscus. Very sad. Very sorry that happened last year. But additionally, he didn't even get practice reps last year. Like, maybe his mind is molding to it a bit more, but he wasn't practicing. He wasn't getting game ready in those practices. He wasn't preparing to be the backup quarterback for a whole year. So not to discredit him, I don't believe that he's as ready as he could be as if he just took the year as a backup. What we saw out of Sam Darnold last season wasn't he's a bad quarterback in a great situation and that's why he's succeeding. It was dang, Sam Darnold actually stepped up to play. Dang, Sam Darnold can play. I'm more convinced of the value of Sam Darnold than I am with J.J. McCarthy. Everything else is going to be framed in that, where I think J.J. McCarthy is going to fall short of expectations. I think this offense is going to stutter no matter how good the coaching staff is. I want to pick the over because I love this coaching staff, one of the best coaching staffs in the league. But it's just hard to do that without a quarterback. That's just how I feel. Everything else about the offense is pretty good. The O-line is pretty good. Getting Will Fries as a right guard is great. Christian Darrisaw is elite at left tackle. Getting Donovan Jackson, although I think everyone agrees that was a bit of an overdraft, will be interesting. And he can be, in my opinion, like an okay left guard. Outside of the O-line, they could have the best weapons in the league. I mean, it's up there. There's probably a couple teams I'd put ahead of them, but not many. It's really just the Buccaneers and the Eagles. I think Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. I think he's a bit above Jamar Chase, even with Jamar Chase's last season, which was incredible. Justin Jefferson's one of a kind, in my opinion. Jordan Addison's one of the best second options in the league. He's not the best, but, I mean, he's up there, man. He'd be a wide receiver one on most teams. And then having Jalen Naylor as a third option is just cheating. Just cheating. And then you have TJ Hawkinson if you need him. What's going on? Plus, he's not coming off an injury this year, so fantastic. He's probably back to full speed, and we can see what he can do. Not to mention getting Jordan Mason to combine with Aaron Jones in the backfield. Oh, boy, it's going to be a high-powered running duo. I'm excited to see what they can do. I think Jordan Mason proved a lot last year in terms of how good of a running back he is and what he can do in this league. Now, I'll talk about the defense, but it almost doesn't matter. Brian Flores is such a good coach. He could take a bag full of chips and teach them to be a Pro Bowl caliber defense. He is an evil genius. He knows how to scheme like a madman, and he should be a head coach somewhere, which is why it's hard to bet the under on this team. Jonathan Grenard had a great camp. Everyone's been hyped about him. He can lead this unit for sure. You have Andrew Van Ginkel as a second option. That's a good option. You have Hargrave, who could thrive in a blitz-heavy Flores system. You have Harrison Phillips, who just got traded. The Harrison Phillips trade to me doesn't really make much sense. Jalen Redmond was the backup for them, and I'm not sure how well he's going to step up. I mean, he can. I believe that he could be a replacement, but I mean, now the pressure's on when it previously wasn't. So the D-line and their blitz packages in general, Flores is going to be able to do a lot with that. Their linebacker group is one of the best coverage linebacker groups in the league. So Flores has the opportunity to do a bunch of interesting blitz packages and a lot of fake blitzes, coverage looks. Just, he can do whatever he wants, really. However, this secondary, in my opinion, is lacking. Vikings fans are tentatively excited about Jeff Okudah. I'm not. Every time I've seen him play in the NFL, he's lost a step. And it sucks because it's from injuries. It's not his fault. He just can't keep up with the flow of the game. He can't keep up with the speed of the game, in my opinion. Having him as your nickel defensive back is just not doable. Not a good idea. Harrison Smith is very old at this point, so we're going to see what we can get out of him. Byron Murphy and Josh Metellus they're fine, but you lost Stephon Gilmore, you lost Shaq Griffin, and you lost Cam Bynum, so this is a pretty heavily downgraded group. We all know Flores is a genius. I think the secondary is going to limit how much he can do. So if J.J. McCarthy proves me wrong and Brian Flores yet again proves that he's an evil genius that knows way more about football than I ever will, this team has massive upside. I think that this could be a potential contender because a lot of the surrounding pieces are there for an amazing team. It's just, will they, can they? The ifs, I'm a bit negative on. Let's get into the schedule. Week 1, Vikings at Bears. I'm going to say that the Vikings lose that. Week 2 versus the Falcons, home game for the Vikings. I'm going to say that the Vikings win. Week 3 at home versus the Bengals. I'm going to say the Vikings win. Week 4 at home versus the Steelers. I'm going to say the Vikings win. Week 5 versus the Browns in Cleveland. I'm going to say the Vikings win. You have your Week 6 bye, off to a great start this season. I think they can keep the momentum going, to be honest. I have one of the few losses I have on the Eagles season coming in Week 7 in Minnesota versus the Vikings. I think the Vikings pick up that home win in Week 7. Week 8, the Vikings in Los Angeles versus the Chargers. I think that's a loss for the Vikings. Week 9, away at the Lions in Detroit. I think that's a loss as well. Week 10 versus the Ravens. Once again, this is a tough schedule, especially this stretch. At home versus the Ravens, I think the Vikings lose that. Week 11 versus the Bears, I think that they split the season series with the Bears. They get that home win in Week 11. Week 12, away at the Packers, I think is a loss. Week 13, away at the Seahawks, I think is a loss. Week 14, home versus the Commanders, I think is a win. Week 15, away at the Cowboys, I think is a loss. Week 16, away at the Giants, I think the wheels come off a little bit, is a loss. Week 17, home versus the Lions, I think that's a loss. Week 18, home versus the Packers, I think that's a win. That brings their season total to 8-9. There are some tough games in this schedule, and I don't think that the Vikings can overcome that. They're in a really tough division. It's not their fault. They have to play the Bears, the Packers, and the Lions twice a year. And even if they just split with these teams outside of that, they have other tough teams that they have to play. So even though I don't think that this team is horrible, I don't think that they're an 8-win caliber team. I just think that they're going to win 8 games. Take that as you will. But schedules play a massive part in this, and that's why it's fun to go game by game and analyze this, because I think that there are teams that in your head you'd think, oh, they'll do a little bit better than that. Then you look at the schedule, and there's a few gimmies that kind of decide everything, but for the most part, it's hard to see the Vikings really shocking to the upside in a regular season record. If they make it to the playoffs, who knows what will happen. If J.J. McCarthy develops over the course of the year, this team could be a powerhouse by the playoffs. It's just hard to say that the Vikings are going to be able to win too many regular season games. That's just my opinion. Happy to hear what you guys have to say in the comments, because I can be proven wrong on this one for sure. Next up is the New England Patriots with an 8.5 win over under. Gotta get my fit on. Okay, I'm ready now. Last year was atrocious. We had maybe the worst O-line in the league, probably the worst wide receiver core in the league, which led to the third worst offense, with also the worst coaching staff in the league. Now we have a decent O-line, a decent group of weapons, and one of the better coaching staffs in the league. Oh, how the tables have turned. I watched a lot of Jacoby Brissett last year. That man did a pretty decent job with how awful everything surrounding him was. And then Drake May came in and looked so much better. I would have made the argument that Jacoby Brissett was still a starting caliber quarterback at the end of last year. I would have made that argument because our O-line was just that bad, and there, if you look downfield on tape, there's just nobody open. And Jacoby Brissett, naturally a bit more conservative with throwing the ball in general, would just kind of take safe plays. You could consider that a fault. I still think he's an elite backup to an almost starting caliber quarterback in the league. Right on that edge. I know I just said that he's a starting caliber quarterback. He'd be like 32nd, 31st. Like right at that like precipice, you know what I'm saying? So for Drake May to come in and then be good with the cast that he had. Like, I don't know how he did it. He weathered the storm. He made some incredible plays. He showed poise. He showed up again and again and again. I'm buying the upside on Drake May, man. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm 100% in. I'm biased. I don't care. I'm here for it. 100%. Not to mention, I really like the weapons this year. I referenced it earlier, but I don't think that Stephon Diggs is washed. He's 32, coming off an ACL. I get that. Wide receivers live forever nowadays, man. Like, I don't think that Stephon Diggs, especially with the type of game that he has, especially with his play style, is going to suffer all that much. And he's looked great in camp. The tape coming off him looks great. He still has burst, cut, the ability to be that starting X wide receiver that we need. And I think he's going to be that. I bought him in every fantasy league that I have. And I think that he's going to still be, maybe not the Stephon Diggs of old, but a 1,000-yard wide receiver. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. Not to mention, Demario Douglas is a legit slot wide receiver. He's 5'8". I get it. But he creates separation like a demon, man. Watching him play is so much fun. He reminds me of like a superpowered Greg Dortch. This is a weird combo, or a weird comparison, but I see it, man. I love watching him. I think that he's going to be a good second option. That's not even to mention Mac Hollins, who's going to be spreading the field, who's going to be that contested catch guy. I think that the weapons this year are more than serviceable. And if the offense doesn't succeed, we'll kind of know where to point the finger, I think. Getting Trevion Henderson is interesting. I really wish that we got Luther Burden and didn't sign Mac Hollins, but that's just my opinion. Very importantly, this O-line is no longer the worst in the league. I am a bit low on Will Campbell. Now it's time for me to be a little bit more negative on this team. What are we doing releasing Cole Strange, one of our starting offensive linemen? He's been injured like crazy. I get it. When he's played, he's been serviceable. Right now, we are starting a third-round rookie. And to be fair, the buzz out of camp is that Jared Wilson's a beast. Even if he took the starting job, you want to have a security for him just in case he regresses. We got rid of Cole Strange, and we got rid of City So. So now his backup is second-year guard, Caden Wallace, who was horrible last year. So I don't know what the decision-making was there, Mr. Michael Vrabel, but that I don't understand it, and I don't like it either. Maybe he's planning on kicking Will Campbell inside to guard at some point in the season and putting Vidarian Lowe as our left tackle, which would just not be a good idea. I find that puzzling and frustrating, and honestly lowered the ceiling of this team for me. Those were two very stupid roster cuts. I was looking elsewhere at roster cuts throughout the league. I think that is one of the stupider ones I've seen. Morgan Moses is underrated. He's a legit right tackle, and I'm really excited that he's on our team. I'm cautiously optimistic that this O-line will be okay. I was really looking forward to not starting Garrett Bradbury. Everything that Vikings fans have said is that he is just not very good at football. No shade meant to be thrown, but I've just never heard a positive word about this man. And Jared Wilson's now getting kicked over to guard when I was excited for him to be at center because we got rid of Cole Strange for no reason. So now we have Garrett Bradbury at center. Can't wait for us to get absolutely dominated in the trenches. So before I develop my first hernia, let's talk about this D-line. This D-line has potential. Go back and watch 2023 Christian Barmore. He was special. he was really special. It is beyond frustrating that we only got 123 snaps of Christian Barmore last year because he had the potential to emerge as one of the top D tackles in the league, in my opinion. And now you add Milton Williams, who was just a absolute dominant force for the Eagles in their Super Bowl run. I think we're talking about a D tackle duo that's comparable to DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. That's where I'm at with this D tackle duo. I'm really, really high on them. I'm biased as hell, but listen to me, I think I'm right on this one. Not to mention that our edge group is not exactly lacking talent. I think Keon White's in for another amazing year. He improved a lot last year. I think he has potential to improve for this one, and especially with Mike Vrabel being his coach, I'm excited about that, man. I think that he can unlock Keon White, and we're going to see a legitimate NFL starting edge rusher out of him. The secondary is the best part about this team, or at least it was. Now I'm frustrated. Now I'm sad. Now I'm a sad man wearing a Pat the Patriot hat as a grown man, and I'm sad. Why we cut Jabril Peppers when we have nobody to replace him? I don't get. And we're also trying to sell Kyle Duggar, who was bad last season, fought through injury. I love the idea of him. Didn't see it on the field last year. But we sold Jabril Peppers to nobody? Unless there's just something I don't understand. We kept him through the legal battles. We kept him through everything. And he was, in my opinion, a top, 5 free safety in the league last year. I mean, you go anywhere, you look anything up, you're going to see that Jabril Peppers had an elite impact on this football team last year. And you saw it, man. It was a safe and comfortable feeling knowing that Jabril's big warm arms was going to wrap up anyone who dared run past most of the other people. He was an incredible tackler. He was incredible in coverage. So why did we release him? I haven't heard a single report that makes sense. It just says, oh, Mike Vrabel wants to go in a different direction. Okay, what direction do we not need Jabril Peppers for? Why is it a better idea to be starting Jalen Hawkins when we just released Marcus Epps? I am now really worried about this safety group. I was going to talk about how excited I was about it. That's not how I feel anymore. I really wanted a combination of Duggar and Jabril Peppers to be that safety duo. I thought that could have been really good this year. That's just not happening. Especially if we trade Kyle Duggar, which it seems like he's either going to get traded or cut, which I would hate to see. Man, I think that those decisions have brought this team down to about mid. It's a bit above mid. It's the most proven group. I think that Christian Gonzalez has a defensive player of the year caliber year in him somewhere. I'm really excited about some of our deeper pieces. I really like Brendan Schooler. I really like Alex Austin. I can't wait to see how this team tries to replace Jabril Peppers. I cannot understand why we did that. This team has a wide range of outcomes, I would argue. I think if the offense clicks, Stephon Diggs is in his prime, the O-line is good, Will Campbell proves that he's a good rookie, Drake May shines to the upside, the offense is legit. I think that there's weapons in place for that to happen. This defense, I think, has incredible coaching. The D-line has a lot of potential. I think a lot of people have underrated that. I think that this linebacker group can also shine to the upside. Literally anything can shine to the upside. The secondary is now the most annoyed I am about this team. But if everything kind of just shifts in one direction, we're looking at a really, really good team. Part of the reason why I think that this team is going to win more regular season games than we're giving it credit for is because the AFC East sucks. The Jets and the Dolphins, I think, are both going to be bad teams. Really bad teams. Probably about the same win total as the Jags and the Titans. That is how bad I'm considering this division. So when I get into the schedule prediction part, which is coming quite soon, you're going to see that I think that the Patriots get a few games, mostly just because of the division that they're in. Patriots season prediction. Here we go. Week 1 at home versus the Raiders. I'm going to say the Patriots win. Week 2 at Dolphins. I'm going to say they lose. Once again, I think the Dolphins are going to be okay when Tua is healthy. It's just when Tua gets injured, it's not going to go well. Week 3 at home versus the Steelers. I think the Patriots take a loss. Week 4 at home versus the Panthers. I think the Patriots take a win. Week 5 in Buffalo against the Bills, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 6 in New Orleans versus the Saints, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 7 in Tennessee versus the Titans, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 8 at home versus the Browns, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 9 at home versus the Falcons, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 10 away versus the Buccaneers, I'm going to say it's a loss. Once again, Buccaneers, great second half team. Keep an eye on them. Week 11 at home versus the Jets, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 12 away at the Bengals, I'm going to say it's a loss. It's going to be a shootout, but now that our secondary stinks, I'm mad. Can you tell that I'm mad? Week 13 at home versus the Giants, I'm going to say that that's a loss. We can never beat the Giants for some reason. I don't want to talk about it. Week 14 is a bye. Thank goodness for that. After that loss, we're going to need to sit and think about what we want to do. What we want to do is Week 15, home versus the Bills. I'm going to say it's a win. I'm going to say that the Patriots and the Bills split their season series. We always give the Bills trouble, sometimes when we should, sometimes when we shouldn't. Week 16, away at the Ravens. I'm going to say it's a loss for the Patriots. Week 17, away at the Jets. I'm going to say that's a loss. I think we split with the Jets. And then Week 18 versus the Dolphins, or what is a shell of the Dolphins. It's a home game for the Patriots. I'm going to say that's a win as well. Bring the Patriots to a 9-8 record on the season, slightly outperforming their 8.5 win over-under. I know I talked about the Patriots a lot. Half the people I'm forcing to watch this video are my friends. Thank you for watching, by the way. So I figured I have to talk about the Patriots for a while. This team is exciting. I am now lower on them because of the Jabril Peppers cut, and the Cole Strange cut, and the City So cut. Where I previously saw a team with no holes, this safety room is now the biggest glaring weakness on this team, in my opinion, especially if we cut Duggar. So we're going to see how that goes. I'm going to stay cautiously optimistic and hope that this team shines to the upside. Let me know what you guys think. Love to hear, especially from my friends, some comments in the comment section. Do you think 9 wins is realistic? This hat is itchy, and I am now taking it off. Next up is the Saints, with an over-under of 4.5 wins. I'm not going to spend too much time on this team. This team is considered the worst team in football. I'd say they're probably the second worst team in football. I'm going to give the Browns that crown this year. They have possibly the worst quarterback league in the room. I believe in Tyler Shook, but they're starting Spencer Rattler for the beginning of the season. Either way, it's not great. I think this O-line could surprise to the upside. I mean, they have Kelvin Banks, Talisi Fuaga, which is an amazing tackle duo. Eric McCoy is elite when he's healthy, but he missed a lot of last season. Chris Olave is a wide receiver 1 when he's healthy, but once again, he just gets banged up a lot. Demario Davis is single-handedly the best thing about this team. He's still elite. There's still a lot of reason to be optimistic about his play this season. The secondary is a crapshoot. I mean, maybe Kool-Aid McKinstry shines to the upside. I'm excited to see what Chase Young can do. It's always fun to watch him, but I'm not expecting much out of him. Any way you look at it, this team is bad. There's just nothing really to be excited about, so I'm just running through it. I'm sorry. I wish I had more interesting things to say, but I think even the most diehard Saints fans, I haven't seen them be optimistic about this season either. I haven't seen them really say anything positive. And when you don't have even diehards going, oh, this random person could shine to the upside. Oh, our 6th round pick is actually a superstar. When you don't have that happening, you know you're in for a bad season. Hence why their over-under is set at 4.5. Let's get into it. At home versus the Cardinals, I'm going to say it's an L. At home versus the 49ers in week 2, I'm going to say that's an L. Away at the Seahawks week 3, I'm going to say that's an L. Away at the Bills week 4, no way in hell. That is another L. Week 5 at home versus the Giants, I'm going to say it's a win. Oh my gosh. It's a miracle. Week 6 at home versus the Patriots, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 7 away at the Bears, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 8 away at the Buccaneers, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 9 away at the Rams, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 10 away at the Panthers, I'm going to say it's a loss. Then comes their bye week. Week 12 at home versus the Falcons, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 13 away at the Dolphins, one of the Dolphins' few wins, I'm going to say that's a loss for the Saints. Week 14 away at the Buccaneers, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 15 home versus the Panthers, it's a miracle. They win that one, I think. And then 2 in a row, week 16 home versus the Jets, I'm going to say they win that one as well. Week 17 away at the Titans, I'm going to say that's a loss. A heartbreaking loss, but a loss nonetheless. And they finish off the season away at the Falcons with another loss. I think that's a 3-win season for the Saints. I don't think I really need to justify that opinion much. If you disagree with that, feel free to tell me in the comments so I get extra traction here, but I don't think that that's a particularly hot take. The New York Giants. I'm excited to talk about this one. Over under 5.5 wins. This team rides or dies with this defensive line. This could be something special. By the end of this season, I'm of the opinion this will be the best D-line in the league. I think it will be better than the Steelers. I'm that high on this D-line. You have Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Dexter Lawrence on the same team. That is absurd. I think that this D-line could win the Giants games against teams that don't know how to pass protect. And I also believe in Brian Daboll's ability to coach around this incredible strength that they have. You've got Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke backing up this D-line. Good luck, man. Good luck scheming against this. Good luck protecting your quarterback. Good luck getting a running back through this group of guys. It's going to be tough every single play. Even if you don't win the game, this team is going to take a lot of energy out of your squad. Not to mention, the secondary is a wild one for this team. The best members of their secondary were both rookies, Andrew Phillips and Tyler Nubin. So there's reason to believe that they could continue to grow into the next season. And they also added Javon Holland, who's debatably the best free safety in football, probably second best free safety in football. I know that the consensus opinion on Javon Holland's not that high right now, but I'm still of the opinion that he's very, very, very good. Not Jesse Bates, but very good. Outside of the three people I mentioned, you still have Paulson Adebo, who is a perfectly adequate cornerback to have in your room. This defense doesn't really have any weaknesses, and it has some elite strengths. I mean, when I'm talking about other teams that I don't expect to have a good season, I usually say, man, yeah, there's not too much to get excited about. There's a lot that you could be excited about with this Giants squad. Now let's move on to the offense. Whew. There is nothing to be excited about other than Malik Neighbors and Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas is constantly injured, and he's trying to recover from a Liz Frank injury, which is incredibly hard for O-linemen to recover from, and people in general. Without him, this offensive line is horrible, and there's a super solid chance they're not going to have him for the whole season. Russell Wilson is fine. Jackson Dart, in my opinion, was a complete overdraft. I want to get proven wrong on that, but I don't think I will be. Malik Neighbors is the only redeemable quality on this offense, other than Andrew Thomas, obviously. I'm not excited about Tyron Tracy. I'm not excited about Cam Scadaboo. What can I say? Not to mention, the Giants have an insanely tough schedule. I'm going to get into it in just a second, but especially the beginning of this season, holy crap. Week 1 at Commanders, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 2 at Cowboys, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 3 versus the Chiefs at home, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 4, home versus Chargers, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 5, away at Saints, I'm going to say that's a loss. So maybe your season's over. Maybe everything's already doom and gloom. I think that this team's not exactly shooting for the Super Bowl, so even with the rough start, I think they can kind of round out. Home versus Eagles, week 6, I think that's a loss. Week 7, away at Broncos, I think that's a loss. Week 8, away at Eagles, I think that's a loss. Finally, week 9, after 8 losses, home versus the 49ers, I think the Giants take a win. The Giants have to win some games. They have to win some games. And the 49ers are going to be a very fluky team, in my opinion. I think that this is totally possible. I have to pick a couple of wild cards for each team. This is one of my wild cards for this year for this Giants team. Away at Bears, I think that's a win as well. I think they beat the 49ers. I think they beat the Bears in weeks 9 and 10. Maybe I'm a little crazy. I haven't slept in a while. Week 11, home versus Packers, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 12, away at Lions, I'm going to say that is a loss. Week 13, away at the Patriots, I'm going to say that's a win. They finally get that bye, desperately needed. Home versus the Commanders, I'm going to say that's a win. I think they managed to split with the Commanders late in the year. I think that as this team develops throughout the year, we could see them improve, and I'm predicting a strong finish for them after a horrible start. Week 16 versus the Vikings at home, I think that the Giants get that home win. Week 17, away at Raiders, I'm going to say that's a win. Finally, week 18, home versus Cowboys. I'm going to say that that's a loss. I think that the Giants finish with 6 wins, barely getting that over. When you have that good of a defense, where I genuinely do see a top half of the league defensive potential for this team, yes, even though the offense is as bad as it is, they're going to be competitive in every game. It's hard to argue against that because of the talent that they have, especially in that D-line, but also what could be that secondary, what could be that linebacker room. I'm excited for this team. I don't know if Giants fans are that excited for this team, but I'm excited for this team. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can cook up. I'm looking to see if Brian Daboll can keep his job. I'm guessing he can't, because the beginning of this season is so damn tough, and especially with me predicting that they're going to lose at Saints in week 5. The Saints had to win some games. It's not like I was predicting the Saints to win every game, but if the Saints were going to win any game, home versus the Giants, I had to. They're not a 2-win team, so yeah, the Giants lose that one in my opinion. But still a 6-win team, still a decent season for this team. I bet the over on them. I'm optimistic. Excited to see what you guys have to say in the comments. Next up is the Jets. 6.5 wins, over under. Which way am I going to go? First of all, what happened to this defense, man? Last year, this defense just crashed and burned without Robert Saleh. They got off on the wrong foot, and then they didn't give Saleh a chance to fix things or right the ship. So yeah, the whole defense was just a down year. Nothing went well. I think Robert Saleh deserves more credit. Turning the Jets into a formidable opponent while Zach Wilson was his quarterback is incredible. I guess formidable is a strong word. Making this team not boring. Quinnen Williams and Sauce both had down years last year, coincidentally, when Robert Saleh, the defensive-minded head coach, who I really don't think should have been fired, got fired. The defense went down. Now they have Aaron Glenn, who I'm lukewarm on. I'm not super excited for him to be a head coach. I don't think he's going to be horrible by any means. I'm just not predicting that he's going to light the world on fire. I think what Saleh got out of this defense was special, and I want to believe that Aaron Glenn can do the same. I just don't think that Aaron Glenn is the same caliber of head coach that Robert Saleh was. So for that reason, I think that this defense doesn't rebound to the heights that we saw in the past. Even though this offensive line is good, even though they invested a high first-round pick into Armand Membu, I'm not entirely sure that's going to help Justin Fields too much. We're talking about one of the worst pocket presence quarterbacks in the league. We're talking about one of the worst vision going to your second read quarterbacks in the league. We're talking about a guy that loves scrambling out of clean pockets even if they're there. I'm not sure how much having a clean pocket is going to help him. So even though the O-line's okay, even though I would say the weapons aren't horrible, definitely not great. Garrett Wilson, I am a Garrett Wilson believer. I think that they have their wide receiver one. Outside of that, there's definitely some questions. I think Breece Hall is washed. I'm more excited to see Braylon Allen this year, which is a sad thing to say considering what Breece once was. I'm not excited for this offense, man. I think this is going to be one of the worst offenses in the league, and I think that the defense is only going to round out to slightly above average. Let's get into the schedule. Happy to start going over this one. Week 1, the Justin Fields reunion game. The Jets get to play this one at home versus the Steelers. I'm going to say that that is an L for the Jets. Week 2, home versus Bills. I'm going to say that's an L. Week 3, away at Buccaneers. I'm going to say that's an L. Week 4, away at Dolphins. I'm going to say that's an L. Week 5, home versus Cowboys. I'm going to say that's an L. Week 6, away at Denver. I'm going to say that they lose to the Broncos. Week 7, versus the Panthers. Home game for the Jets. I'm going to say that's an L. Week 8, I'm going to say that's an L. Away at Bengals, I'm going to say that's an L. They get that Week 9 bye. Couldn't have come at a better time. I'm predicting that they lose the first 8 games of the season. Oh boy. Week 10 versus Browns. A home game for the Jets versus the Browns. They get their first win of the season, a collective sigh of relief, I know. Week 11, away at Patriots, I'm going to say that's an L. Week 12, away at the Ravens, I'm going to say that's an L. Week 13, home versus Falcons, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 14, home versus Dolphins, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 15, away at Jaguars, I'm going to say it's an L. Week 16, away at Saints, I'm going to say it's an L. Week 17, I think they managed to split the season series with the Patriots. Me. Home versus Patriots, I think that they get that W. Week 18 to finish off this absolute crud season, away at Bills, I'm going to say that's an L, bringing their season total to 4 wins. So far, I am the lowest beneath projection for the Browns. I think they're going to do 3.5 under their over-under. The Jets are at 2.5. So that gives you an idea of how I feel about them. They're right up there with the Dolphins as one of the teams that I just do not have any faith in to figure this out. It's a new coaching staff. It's an incomplete roster. There's a decent foundation there, but a lot of the pieces that they're relying on are unproven. And then some of the pieces that they are also relying on, in my opinion, Justin Fields, are proven to be bad. It's not like I don't enjoy talking badly about the Jets, because I do. It is a good time. I highly recommend it. I feel amazing right now. But even outside of that, I don't think that the Jets are going to be good this season. Would be happy to hear your thoughts in the comments section. This is an interesting team for sure, and I am excited to see how they do. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles with an over-under of 11.5 wins. This is a spicy one. This team has not lost a game with Jalen Hurts as their starter since September 29th, 2024. It was Kenny Pickett that lost against the Commanders in Week 16, and it was still 36-33. To me, that emphasizes the sheer insanity of this roster. We're talking about the same Kenny Pickett that got cut by the Browns. Pause, reframe, zoom in. The Browns. He got cut by the Browns. This has the best surrounding roster for a quarterback in the league, bar none, and it's not really close. Every single position group on this team is in the top 10 of the NFL. You can make an argument they have the best running back, the best wide receiver core, and the best O-line in the NFL. They lost Darius Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson out of their secondary, but they still have a top 10 secondary. They lost Milton Williams and Josh Sweat in their D-line, and they still have a top 10 D-line. Moro Ojomo could be a potential superstar this year. He was dominant last year in limited snaps, and now he gets to be a starter. I mean, he could be as good, if not better, than Milton Williams. I mean, hey, maybe that's a hot take. I don't think it's that hot of a take if you looked at what he did last year. Jalen Carter is a superstar. He was an all-pro second team last year, and he's still so young. That's not to mention Nolan Smith, Hunt, Jordan Davis. Like, there are so many names on this team that it can get dizzying. Not to mention, they have handily the second best linebacker in the league with Zach Bond, right behind Fred Warner. Dude is unbelievable, deserved the contract. Really glad that the contract happened because I wanted to see what this Eagles team could continue to do. I don't like the Eagles, but I'm happy that this worked out for Zach Bond. What a historic and meteoric rise to excellence that he's had. Not to mention Nakobe Dean, when he's been healthy, is great. And if you didn't need both of those, you just got Jahad Campbell, who is one of my favorite prospects of this draft class. So this Eagles team doesn't miss. Howie Roseman doesn't miss. It doesn't happen. And they have Vic Fangio as a DC. So, you know what? Why try? Why try and beat this team? You can't. The biggest weakness on this team, in my humble opinion, is Jalen Hurts. When you see a team have massive success, you want to attribute the success to the coach and to the quarterback. I want to push back on that narrative a teensy-weensy bit. Jalen Hurts is not bad. Don't get me wrong. He's not an MVP. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's good at what he does. He's accurate, especially when he has time to throw, which he always does with this team. He had 11 turnover-worthy plays in the first 4 weeks of the season. For the rest of the season after those first 4 weeks, he had 8. 8, including the postseason. From week 5 and onward, that is a 1.9% turnover-worthy play rate, which is insane. But once again, he wasn't the driving force behind this team. You had a MVP caliber season from a running back. You had the best O-line in the league. You have one of the best wide receiver cores in the league, if not the best wide receiver core in the league. So to get ranked 19th by his peers in the NFL Top 100 is absurd. Just among quarterbacks, he was 27th in non-play action passes last year in PFF grading. He still doesn't have great pocket presence. He dives out of clean pockets. He still can't find his second read as often as he should. But it almost doesn't matter because he almost always has a clean pocket and he almost always has his first read open because he has an unbelievable wide receiver core. And he did a fantastic job, to his credit, of limiting turnovers and being accurate with what he was given. Not everyone can do that. I'm not here to hate on Jalen Hurts. He did a lot of really impressive stuff last season. He's just not how high the hype is on him right now. But I get why people get so hyped about him. I'm going to keep an eye on this team. I'm going to keep an eye on the D-line. I'm going to keep an eye on Saquon Barkley's health. I'm going to keep an eye on Jalen Hurts' play. But there's going to need to be multiple things to go incredibly wrong for this roster to not be incredible. There is depth everywhere. There is superstar talent everywhere in every position group. It's insane. They have a good QB, but they have the best roster in the league. The Eagles are poised to do something special and repeat as champions, and man, I think that the future is bright. Let's get to it. Week 1, home versus Cowboys, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 2, away at Chiefs, I'm going to say that's a win. They were so much better than them in the Super Bowl. I can't imagine that much is going to change there. Home versus Rams, week 3, I'm going to say it's a win. Away at Buccaneers, I'm going to say that that's a win in week 4. Once again, Buccaneers, slow start to the season, still an amazing team. Bear with them. Week 5, home versus Broncos, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 6, away at Giants, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 7, away at Minnesota, I'm going to say that's a loss. First loss of the season comes in week 7. Week 8, home versus Giants, I'm going to say it's a win. Bye in week 9. Week 10, away at Packers, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 11, home versus Lions, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 12, away at Cowboys, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 13, home versus Bears, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 14, away at Chargers, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 15, home versus Raiders, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 17, away at Commanders, they have to lose some, I'm going to say it's a loss. Away at Bills in week 17, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 18, home versus Commanders, I'm going to say it's a win. I have a hard time seeing them not win an absurd number of games, but my prediction is 15. I'm over the top. I'm hyperbolic. I'm getting crazy. I'm saying 15 wins. I get it. This team is capable of it. We saw it last year. They won the Super Bowl. I wouldn't put money on them winning 15 exactly because that is an absurd record. You have to play every given Sunday. But this team can do it, and that's why I'm so high on them. Curious to hear you guys' thoughts. Please leave a comment. Let me know if you think 15 is absurd. I understand it either way. Surprise, I'm cleanly shaven and ready to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a sentence I didn't think I was going to say. This team is going to live and die by trench play. In my opinion, the two most important groups for this team is the D-line and the O-line. The D-line has a lot of questions, in my opinion. Will Cam Hayward continue to be a dominant force at 36 years of age? Will TJ Watt stop progressing? He had a down year last year. Even after he came back from injury, even after he was healthy, he was still not as good as he once was. The team certainly thinks so with the contract they just gave him. Will Derek Harmon step up as a rookie? The answer for these things all kind of need to be yes, that it will be good for the Pittsburgh Steelers because this team is going to rely on their D-line a lot. Because of what this offense projects to be, that D-line needs to be elite because it's the best part of their defense, which is going to hopefully carry this team to success. Outside of that, their O-line is very young. 4 out of the 5 members of their starting O-line have a wide range of outcomes. Broderick Jones, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Troy Fontenot are all young players and have the ability to grow in this next season. But who breaks out this year? When? How? Why? What? With Aaron Rodgers at the age that he is, with how slow he is, he's not a very mobile quarterback anymore, he can still be good, I think, if he has proper protection in the pocket. And there's potential for that to be there. There's also potential that this O-line doesn't perform to the upside. They're one of the bottom third O-lines in the league, and Aaron Rodgers just gets pressured all the time. That brings me into the next point. This offense is also not an exciting one for me. I think Aaron Rodgers will be fine as long as that O-line holds up, but DK Metcalf I don't believe is a wide receiver one in the NFL. I think that how he looks, just being the physical freak of nature that he is, you see it on the field and you also see it in terms of just his appearance. He looks like a Greek god. I think that kind of takes away from what he's shown us on the field. And what he's shown us on the field is that I think he's a great wide receiver in the NFL. I don't think he's worth the contract that he got, and I don't think he's a wide receiver one. Hoping that I'm wrong there. DK seems like a good guy whenever I've seen him talk to fans and stuff like that. It's always been fun. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him to be successful, but a second weapon needs to emerge beside him, whether it's Jonnu Smith, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson. Someone needs to show up and be a legit supplementary piece to DK Metcalf for this offense to be functional, in my opinion. And DK Metcalf will also need to show a bit more than he's done in the past. I can't talk about this team without talking about the coaching staff. Arthur Smith is going to be a good offensive coordinator. Mike Tomlin is I can't even say the king or the franchise owner. I can say the owner of the monopoly of mid in the NFL. I think he's the owner of the monopoly of mid. If anyone can drag this team to a mediocre record, it's him. He's the man for the job. I joke. I should get into the schedule now. All right, let's get into it. Steelers week 1 at Jets. I'm going to say that's a W for the Steelers. They win the Justin Fields Bowl. Week 2, home versus Seahawks. I'm going to say that's a win for the Steelers. Week 3, away at Patriots. I'm going to say it's a win for the Steelers. Week 4 at Vikings. I'm going to say it's a loss for the Steelers. They get that early week 5 bye. Coming off the bye, they have a very nice matchup. Home versus the Browns. I am going to say that's a W for the Steelers. Week 7, away at Bengals. I'm going to say it's a loss for the Steelers. Week 8, home versus Packers. I'm going to say it's a win. Week 9, home versus Colts. I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 10, away versus Chargers. I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 11, home versus Bengals. I'm going to say it's a W. Week 12, away at Bears. I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 13, home versus Bills. I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 14, away at Ravens. I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 15, home versus Dolphins. I'm going to say it's a win. Week 16, away at Lions. I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 17, away at Browns. I'm going to say it's a win. Week 18, away at Ravens. I'm going to say it's a loss, bringing this team's record to the grand total of 8-9. The streak is broken. Mike Tomlin finally has a losing record as a head coach, only by one game. I'm going half a game underneath this team's projected win over under. Although I believe in the coaching staff, I don't think that this defense is going to be good enough to drag this team to a winning record, and I think that this offense is not set up for success currently. Even if Arthur Smith is a good OC, maybe not a good head coach, but a good OC, I have a hard time seeing this offense hit the ground running. The defense should still be good. I just don't think it's going to be good enough to get them above 500. That's just my opinion. Happy to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. This is an interesting one. San Francisco 49ers, over under of 10.5 wins. This team is very reliant on their superstars. The upside is a Super Bowl. The downside is what we saw last year. Injuries will play a huge role with this team, and for that reason, I think it's one of the hardest teams to predict in the league. Let's go over the superstars. You have Christian McCaffrey, Nick Bosa, George Kittle, Trent Williams, and Fred Warner. Christian McCaffrey, first and foremost, could be the best weapon in the NFL, if he's healthy, when he's healthy. He's just never healthy. If he plays, the 49ers will have a great offense. If he doesn't play, this 49ers offense will not be great. Their D-line is Nick Bosa and 2 rookies. If Nick Bosa misses any time, like he missed last year, he missed 3 games last year, this D-line could struggle. And Nick Bosa played through injury, man. I mean, there were times that you saw him roll his ankle and he came right back out for the next snap and was sometimes ineffective because he was playing through injuries the way that he was. If he's not 100%, this D-line is going to struggle. Right now, this team is prepared to start Kalia Davis and Jordan Elliott, which could be a disaster. Even with Fred Warner as your linebacker, who is by far the best linebacker in the league, one of a kind, far and away the best, even with his support, that's going to be a hard weakness to overcome. That's going to be a hard deficit to hide. They've got to hope that Alfred Collins and CJ West step up quick, but those are 2 rookies, and you can never be too sure. Their edge group is good, don't get me wrong. I'm just worried about their D-tackle spots. George Kittle is 32, and he has not shown any sign of regression. Last year was an incredible year for him. But if he's not 100% what he's been, how much do you trust this group of weapons right now? You don't have Brandon Ayuk. You may not have Juwan Jennings. Is Ricky Pearsall going to shine to the upside? I was high on Ricky Pearsall, but even I didn't think that he was a first-round pick last year. This receiving core just has a lot of question marks with it. When are we getting Brandon Ayuk back? What's it going to be when we get him back? How good is Juwan Jennings going to be? How as good is Ricky Pearsall going to be? There's a whole lot up in the air, which just further questions where this team's going to end up. Next up, Trent Williams. He is one of the most incredible players in NFL history. He is still incredible at 37, but he's recovering from an ankle injury. And if he's not 100%, or if he gets injured again, who's going to replace him? Nobody. There's no depth on this O-line right now. I mean, Spencer Burford, not to mention the secondary's been gutted. I mean, you have Diamador Lenore stepping up as your cornerback 1, I would assume, but even then You really miss Travarius Ward. You really miss Talanoa Hufanga. Fred Warner can't do everything for both the D tackles and the secondary. I mean, maybe he can. He is Fred Warner. Maybe I can be wrong there, hopefully. There's one thing I am still sure of, and that is that Kyle Shanahan is still an elite NFL head coach. The coaching change rumors surrounding him, in my opinion, are just dumb. I really am not listening to any of that. He is still an incredible head coach, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do this season. I wouldn't pay that any mind at all. Robert Saleh coming into the fold, being this new DC. I'm excited for that too. Hopefully he can make this defense shine to the upside. But once again, outside of his control is the health of his important players. This could be a losing season. This team could win the Super Bowl. It's a dart throw. Without any further ado, let's predict this schedule. Week 1 at Seahawks, going to say it's a loss. Week 2 at Saints, going to say it's a win. Week 3, home versus Cardinals, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 4, home versus Jaguars, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 5 at Rams, going to say it's a loss. Week 6 at Buccaneers, going to say that's a loss. Week 7 versus Falcons, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 8 at Texans, going to say it's a loss. Week 9 at Giants, I'm going to say that's a loss. I'm pretty high on this Giants team. They have some big wins in my schedule predictions. Week 10, home versus Rams, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 11, away at Cardinals, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 12, home versus Panthers, going to say that's a win. Week 13, away at Browns, going to say that's a win. Week 14, bye. Week 15, home versus Titans, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 16, away at Colts, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 17, home versus Bears, going to say that's a loss, and that's going to be a pretty brutal one because they definitely need that one. Then week 18, home versus Seahawks, I'm going to say that's a win, bringing them to a total of 9-8 on the season, a solid game and a half underneath their 10.5 win over-under. This team is too unpredictable, man. I don't believe that they're going to stay healthy for a season. I want to believe that. I don't know how great this offense is going to be without Ayuk and without CMC, with an aging George Kittle, with a banged-up Trent Williams. There's a lot of questions. I want to believe that they can shine to the upside. I do believe in Ricky Pearsall. I don't believe in this offense enough to think that it's going to surpass 10.5 wins. The defense, additionally, once again, you're relying on Nick Bosa a whole lot. You're relying on Fred Warner a whole lot to plug up some holes. You do have Robert Saleh, who's a master at covering up weaknesses like that. But that's a lot to trust them going into the season. I think that they're going to get banged up. I think that when they do get banged up, there's going to be just some glaring holes on this team. They don't have much depth, and we're going to end up being disappointed with what the 49ers do this season. That's my prediction. Excited to see what you guys have to say in the comments. Let me know what you think. Next up is the Seattle Seahawks with a over-under of 7.5 wins. The primary question with this team is, who is Sam Darnold? We'll find out, but in the most important situations last year, he showed all of the negative traits that we saw in the Jets, and it's concerning. Even though the O-line was broken at that point, he still refused to throw the ball when most important.
He's holding it too long!
Just run!
Throw it, man!
How will Sam Darnold adapt, going from possibly the best situation in football to not the best situation in football? And not to be too negative, I think he's going to struggle. I think that Seattle will take a long, hard look at Jalen Milroe before the season is over, and we're going to have a conversation. The weapons in Seattle after the DK Metcalf departure are a bit meh. Jackson Smith-Njigba had an amazing season last year. I still think he's more of a wide receiver too. I think we might have seen his upside already hit. Cooper Kupp, I think, is a bit washed. It doesn't make me happy to say that, but if Jason can shine to the upside, show that he's a legit wide receiver one in the NFL, I think Cooper Kupp can be an okay wide receiver too, but that's if he stays healthy. That's if he can stay on the field. Kenneth Walker is amazing. He has, if you look at any of his stats, he's a stats darling, especially last year with broken tackles, missed tackle rates, stuff like that. He has shown the talent to be a top-tier running back in the league. Can he stay healthy? There's a reason that the Seahawks invested as heavily as they did into Zach Charbonnet. So can this run game be sustained? It all comes down to, can Kenneth Walker stay healthy? And the answer is probably no. This team does not have a tight end right now. They are starting A.J. Barner. They hyped the crap out of Elijah Arroyo in the draft process, after the draft process, saying that he was going to be a wide receiver for them, saying that he was going to occupy all these different roles. I'm just not sure I'm that high on Elijah Arroyo in his rookie season, or just in general, to be honest. I didn't see the athleticism that draft scouts talked about on tape. I didn't see fluidity in his movements, in and out of breaks. He's one of the people I actually sat down and watched some film of, and I just wasn't that impressed impressed, to be honest. So with that, the offense rounds out, especially surrounding Sam Darnold, as a bit meh, and that doesn't even begin to address the O-line. The O-line has potential, but it's a bit of a wild card. Charles Cross is a beast. No disputing that. Gray Zabel, I think, is going to come in and be an impactful rookie, but after that, you have Jalen Sundell, Anthony Bradford, and Abraham Lucas, who has been constantly injured. There's a lot of unproven factors with this O-line, a lot of reasons to be suspicious that they're going to be able to hold up. They allowed the second highest pressure rate in the NFL last season. They nearly got Geno killed. I'm not optimistic for the O-line this season. We're going to see what they can do in the future, but I'm not optimistic. However, I am more optimistic about this defense than I initially thought I was. They have an incredibly deep D-line. DeMarcus Lawrence and Leonard Williams are going to anchor this unit, but there's upside in Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Byron Murphy. One of the most important factors for the success of this team is who will Byron Murphy be? There is legitimate reason to believe that Byron Murphy can shine to the upside, show why he was the 16th overall pick, be the first rounder that the Seahawks hoped that he was, and if he does, he's going to be able to raise the ceiling of this team by a lot. That transforms this D-line from a good D-line to, if he really shows out, a great D-line. Not to mention Boye Mafe. Will he take the next step in his fourth year? He's been improving every year. I'm excited to see what he can do this year. Derek Hall, will he be an elite pass rusher? Right now, I'd say that they, at week 1 of the season, are a middle-of-the-pack group, but with a lot of potential to be better. And the secondary for them is also a strength. They have one of the best safety rooms in the league. Julian Love's elite. Kobe Bryant had a great season last season, and then they just added Nick Emanuori, who was one of the most freakishly athletic prospects of this last year's draft. I'm excited to see what they're going to scheme up on the defensive end, but having that deep of a safety room allows you to do some really interesting packages. I'm excited to see what they come up with. Not to mention they have Devon Witherspoon, who is elite, followed up by Reek Woolen, who is one of the better CB2s in the league, in my opinion. Great coverage corner room. I mean, it's going to be hard to throw against this Seattle team. If that D-line can shine to the upside, this defense has the ability to be good. Like, not just mediocre, but really good. And if that happens, I think that, this team can surprise. I'm pretty dubious on the offense, I won't lie. So I'm going to get into the schedule, but I'll admit I'm not the highest on the Seattle team. All right, week 1, home versus the 49ers. I'm going to say it's a win for Seattle. Seattle comes out and gets that huge week 1 win versus the 49ers. Week 2 at Steelers, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 3, home versus Saints, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 4, away at Cardinals, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 5, home versus Bucks, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 6, away at Jaguars, I'm going to say that's a loss. Definitely a bit of a rush patch there, but they're going to fix it in Week 7, home versus the Texans. That's going to be a win. Week 8 is a bye. Week 9, they're away at Commanders. I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 10, home versus Cardinals, I'm going to say that's a win. Week 11, away at Rams, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 12, away at Titans, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 13, home versus Vikings, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 14, away at Falcons, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 15, home versus Colts, that's a win. Week 16, home versus Rams, that's a win. Week 17, away at Panthers, that's a loss. Week 18, away at 49ers, they're going to split the season series, that's a loss. I'm going to say that the Seattle Seahawks go 7-10. Right now, their over-under is at 7.5, so only slightly below expectation for them. I have too many questions about this offense, and the defense isn't proven enough for me to give them the vote of confidence that they're going to be a 500 team this year. Obviously, they're not far off from it. If Sam Darnold can prove that he's not who he was at the end of last year, then I'm going to look dumb, I'm going to look stupid, and I'm totally fine with that. I am worried. The identity of Sam Darnold is probably the biggest question mark with this team, followed up by that D-line and what they can be. I'm excited to see them this season. I think that they're a pretty unpredictable team. They could definitely be better than the 7-10 record. They could also be worse if Sam Darnold comes out and really puts on a stinker. I don't think that'll happen. Probably not worse than 7-10. But that's where I'm at on the Seahawks team. Would love to see you guys' opinions in the comments and let me know what you think. The next team is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a win over under of 9.5. Right off the bat, I'm high on this team. What exactly is the weakness that they have on offense? I'd say there's two understandable answers you can have. You can say O-line depth. Their starting O-line's fine. You can say O-line depth, and then maybe OC Jonathan Grizzard. But generally speaking, this is one of the most well-rounded, best-made offenses in the NFL. I think Baker Mayfield's a fringe top 10 quarterback, right around there with Dak, Jordan Love, other incredibly capable quarterbacks. But compared to those two guys, he has some of the best help in the league. Four of my favorite wide receivers in the whole league are on this team. I mean, you have future Hall of Famer Mike Evans. You have Chris Godwin, who was on a career year trajectory last year. Unfortunately, he had that injury, but before that, he was looking incredible. He's probably going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season, but then while he's gone, you have Emeka Egbuka, who was one of my favorite draft prospects of this last year's draft. Such a complete player, probably one of the highest floors of any rookie to come out of this year's draft. And even behind that, they have Jalen McMillan, who showed a lot of promise as a rookie last year, to the point that the Emeka Egbuka pick didn't even really make that much sense to me, because I thought that Jalen McMillan was going to be there and be a beast. Obviously, Jalen McMillan injured now, but either way, we're talking about an insane group of weapons, and that's just on the receiving end. I don't think people understand how good Bucky Irving is. Last year, he had 5.4 yards per carry, which is crazy. He had forced 53 missed tackles on 207 running attempts, so he was making people miss all the time. He led the league in yards after contact with 4.03. We are talking about a top 5 running back in the league, in my opinion, and this is his sophomore year. There's reason to believe he could take another step this year and turn into a superstar, go from a high-end Pro Bowl caliber player to a legitimate superstar. Specifically on the ability to shed contact. It's like all the other people who were able to take contact as well as Bucky Irving did are all way bigger than him. We're talking about someone who's got the quicks, the shiftiness of a small running back, but he still has contact balance, still able to shed tackles. He can catch. He's got incredible vision. I mean, I think that he is a top 5 running back in the league, and I think he's going to prove it this year. Maybe top 5 is a bit heavy. I would say that you got Saquon, Derrick Henry, CMC in the tier 1 just in terms of talent. And then I would put Bucky Irving in that second tier with Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson. Those guys, that would be kind of like my 1-2. Now, this O-line is a very interesting unit. Like I said earlier, if you were to call O-line depth of weakness for the Buccaneers, I wouldn't disagree. With Tristan Wirfs being out for the first 4 weeks, it's okay to be dubious about this O-line for now. But when they're healthy, I really do believe that the combination of Luke Gedeke and Tristan Wirfs is one of the best tackle duos in the league, and their interior O-line has a lot of potential to shine to the upside this season. I'm a believer in some of the people that they have on the interior. If Wirfs is out for the first 3-4 weeks, I think this O-line will struggle. But once he's back and once he gets into the swing of things, don't get it twisted. This is one of the better O-lines in the league because Tristan Wirfs is a beast. It's important for me to mention. I think a big caveat that a lot of people have with this team is that their D-line isn't particularly good. I want to push back on that in a major way. I think people aren't giving enough credit to how good Yaya Diaby was last year. I think Yaya Diaby showed what he's capable of in being a legitimate edge rusher in this league who is capable of breaking down defenses and being a game wrecker. I think he showed that in flashes last year, but he really did start showing up. I don't think people gave Yaya Diaby enough credit for how good he was last year. This man proved that he is a high-quality edge rusher in this league and has game-wrecking ability. The assertion that this D-line isn't that good, I think, is mostly due to sleeping on how good Yaya Diaby is, at least in the public perception. Vita Vea continues to be the best at what Vita Vea does, so you've got two, in my opinion, anchors of that defensive line. And then I think the biggest question mark on this D-line is Hassan Reddick. But once again, I don't think that the negative narrative surrounding Hassan Reddick is all that valid. There is more reason to believe that he's going to have a year back to regular form than there is reason to believe that he is just going to continue to be as bad as he was. With the contract disputes, with getting traded from team to team, with not practicing, not having preparation with teams, he struggled. I think that Hassan Reddick, what he's still got in the tank, if he has an offseason to be coached, know how to fit into a scheme, I think Hassan Reddick still has, maybe not a lead upside, but high quality edge rush capability. And once, if that's what we're talking about this D-line being anchored by 3 high tier players. So don't sleep on this D-line. I think that it's a really good unit. I think it's a better unit than we're giving it credit for, and it's one of the reasons I'm high on this team. You still got future Hall of Famer Levante David as your linebacker, Excited to see what he can do this year. Obviously, he is old. You don't know how good he's going to be, but there's reason to believe that he will at least still be serviceable. I don't think that that's a weakness for this team. And then this secondary, man, has one of my, if not my favorite, my guy, looking forward to seeing what he's going to do this season, player in Zion McCollum. I think by year's end, Zion McCollum takes over this secondary and becomes the CB1 over Jamel Dean. But when that happens, Jamel Dean, having him as your CB2, that's a deep cornerback room. That's a really good secondary. We're not even mentioning Antoine Winfield. Zion McCollum, I think, is going to absolutely break through the season. I think that this is the season that he becomes the player that he was mocked as what everyone hoped that he could become with that raw athleticism that he brought into the NFL. He's got the perfect frame. He's got the speed. He's developing the touch, the consistency, being a great coverage defender. I mean, last season, I thought we were seeing him break through. He had a couple of inconsistent games towards the end of the season, but once again, Zion McCollum has the ability to be that top tier guy, and I think that this is finally the year that it happens. I have no bias towards the Buccaneers. So many people who I believe in are on this team. So many people that I, in a vacuum, have said that is going to be a player that's going to surprise to the upside this season, and it's one of the reasons why I think that this team is going to be better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. As we get into the schedule prediction, I just want to preface, I do think that the Buccaneers are going to struggle out of the gate, but later in the season, when they get that momentum, and they win the last however many games it is of the season for them, this is a team that with momentum is a legitimate Super Bowl contender, in my opinion. So let's get into the schedule. Week 1, Buccaneers at Falcons. That's going to be a loss for the Buccaneers. Week 2, Buccaneers at Texans. That's going to be a loss for the Buccaneers. Starting off with 2 away games is definitely a tough way to begin, especially when you're already down 2 of your best players. Week 3, home versus Jets. I'm going to say it's a win. Week 4, home versus Eagles. I'm going to say it's a loss. So I am predicting that the Buccaneers start 1-3 to start the season. Once again, rough start. Let's keep going. Week 5, away at Seahawks. That's going to be a win. Week 6, home versus 49ers. That's going to be a win. Week 7, away at Lions. That's going to be a loss. Week 8, away at Saints. That's going to be a win. Week 9 is that bye. Doing pretty mediocre going into the bye, but they're going to hit the ground running. Week 10, home versus Patriots. That's going to be a win. Week 11, away at Bills. That's going to be a win. Week 12, away at Rams. It's going to be a loss. Week 13, home versus Cardinals. It's going to be a win. Week 14, home versus Saints. It's going to be a win. Week 15, home versus Falcons. That's going to be a win. Week 16, away at Panthers. That's going to be a win. Week 17, away at Dolphins. That's going to be a win. Week 18, home versus Panthers. I'm going to say that they get the season sweep versus the Panthers. Ending the season on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 game win streak. They're going to go into the playoffs as a 12-5 team with all the momentum in the world. Projecting this Buccaneers team to win 12 games means that I am 2.5 games high on them. That shows you where I'm at on this team, man. And that's with struggles in the beginning of the season. When they hit the ground running, when they're healthy-ish, hopefully, towards the end of the season, when they get that momentum, do not sleep on this team in the playoffs. That's what I'm going to say. I would be shocked if this team was a first-round exit. If they are a first-round exit, I'll be kicking myself because I think that this team has all the potential in the world to get to an NFC championship and potentially more. That's how high I am on this Buccaneers team. If the Eagles weren't in the NFC, this could be a Super Bowl appearance, in my opinion. That's how high I am on this team. Anyways, want to hear your guys' opinion? Let me know in the comments. The second to last team of this schedule prediction video that's taken me far too long is the Tennessee Titans with a total win over/under of 5.5. What do I really need to say? I mean, Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat as a D-tackle duo create a formidable run defense between the two of them. Outside of that, you're getting L'Jarius Sneed back this season after they gave him that massive contract to lure him away from the Kansas City Chiefs. He was great 2 years ago, injured last year. Excited to see what he can do this year. That's the good. Now let's address the bad. The bad is pretty much everything else. The weapons all range from being mid to just bad. I don't think Calvin Ridley is your wide receiver 1. I think that Tyler Lockett is just not who you need him to be as a wide receiver 2, to be honest. I don't think that he's good enough for that role. I'm high on Iamaner, but as a rookie, and are you really expecting him to emerge as a wide receiver 2 that can create production? That's a lot to ask for a late pick, The O-line is meh. I mean, Kevin Zeitler is really good. Peter Skoronski is okay. But Zeitler's getting old. You're going to hope that J.C. Latham rounds to form. He had an okay rookie year. I was really low on him going into his rookie year. I thought he was an overdraft. Their linebacker room basically doesn't exist. Last but not least, I mean, Cam Ward. I mean, you get the first overall pick. You hope that he's good, but he's not like a surefire dunk of a first overall pick. I think in other drafts he wouldn't have been the first overall pick if there were other quarterbacks available. The Titans, I think, made the right decision going and getting a quarterback. I don't think Cam Ward is a bad pick by any means, but I'm not in here like, oh, slam dunk, 10 out of 10. I don't think this Titans team has a particularly wide range of outcomes. It's going to be a bad team. Could have said the same thing about the Commanders last year, and I was just dead wrong, but the Commanders actually had at least a few pieces where it's like, okay, if everything goes to the upside, they at least have Terry McLaurin. They at least have a good coaching staff. Cliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn are experienced good coaches. Brian Callahan, I'm not that high on. Cam Ward has no weapons to throw to. The O-line's okay. Cam Ward would have to have an unbelievable season for this team to even sniff 500, but I don't think they're going to get close to 500, to be honest. I think that their range of outcomes ranges probably from 8 wins to less, and the less side of that could be bad. So I'm just going to get into the schedule. There's not that much to talk about with this team. Week 1 at Broncos, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 2, home versus Rams, that's a loss. Week 3, home versus Colts, that's a win. Week 4, away at Texans, that's a loss. Week 5, away at Cardinals, that's a loss. Week 6, away at Raiders, that's a loss. Week 7, home versus Patriots, that's a loss. Week 8, away versus Colts, that's a loss. Week 9, home versus Chargers, that's a loss. Going to that Week 10 bye with 1 win and 8 losses, so yeah, it's not looking great for them. Week 11, home versus Texans, that's a loss. Week 12, home versus Seahawks, they finally get that second win, big one, and they're going to build a little bit of momentum here. Week 13, home versus Jaguars, I think that's a win. Week 14, away at Browns. The Browns have to win at least one game this season, so I'm going to say it's a loss for the Titans, unfortunately. Week 15, away at 49ers, that's a loss as well. Week 16, home versus Chiefs, that's a loss. Week 17, home versus Saints, that's a win. Week 18, away at Jaguars, that's a loss, finishing with 4 wins and 13 losses on the season. That's 1.5 games beneath their over-under. I have a hard time seeing this team do particularly well. Maybe I'm a little bit low on them, I can admit that. I think that this team could be a 5-win team. 6 wins is, in my opinion, pushing a little bit. That is not enough to believe in the upside for this team. So that's where I'm at in the Titans. Let me know your thoughts. Leave your comments in the comments section. Oh, the last team that we've got to go in this schedule prediction video. If you're still here, thank you for continuing to watch. If you're just skipping to the Commanders at the end, thank you for just watching the Commanders. Regardless, this has been a fun video to make, no matter how much time I have spent on it, which is way too much. The Washington Commanders have a projected win total of 9.5 wins over under. Let's get into it. 9.5 wins is a pretty big fall off from the season that they had last year. Can they repeat the magic that they had last year? Why were they so much better than expected? This is probably one of the most surprising teams to over-exceed expectations in recent NFL history. And there's a couple of aspects to attribute that to. I'm going to whittle it down to 2, and that's a bit simplified. This is not supposed to be too deep of a dive. I'm going to whittle it down to 2 factors: coaching and Jane Daniels. Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury were slam dunk coaching hires. Cliff Kingsbury's probably going to get another shot to be a head coach sometime soon because he did such a phenomenal job last year. Dan Quinn took a talent-depleted defensive roster and made it into a semi-competent defense. Barely. It was mostly the offense being elite, but either way, this coaching staff covered up so many deficiencies and created Jane Daniels. I mean, obviously you have to give Jane credit in his own right, but you can't understate how important this coaching staff was for Jane Daniels' success, and that success was incredible. We're looking at one of the greatest rookie seasons for a quarterback in the history of the league. In the history of the league. It can't be understated just how incredible he was. And going into year 2, I think you have to anticipate he'll get better, but it's hard to imagine what he can improve on because he already has so many of the qualities that usually you would hope that a rookie develops in his second year. He's poised. He has great decision making. He is so calm under pressure. He makes so few turnover worthy plays. He knows exactly how to play his cards in a way that limits mistakes and takes advantage of what defenses give him. And that's usually stuff that you expect to develop. Jayden Daniels had it year one, and he was elite. He was among the best in the league in year one. I'll talk about Jayden Daniels a bit more in a bit. I want to start with this defense because I think the most important factor for this team's success this year is going to be their D-line, which got worse. They lost Dante Fowler. They lost Jonathan Allen. And they're now relying on Javon Kinlaw. It's been a while since I've seen a move just get unanimously slammed by NFL fans the way that this one did. Nobody thought that this was a good move for the Commanders. Having Javon Kinlaw as a starter when you need to rely on him is a very risky move. I think we know exactly what he is. He is a good pass rusher. He is helpful on that end. He is a complete liability in situational awareness. He is a complete liability when it comes to stopping the run. And I think that there's a lot of reason to believe that if this Commanders team has to rely on him, this D-line is going to underperform. It's as simple as that. They also signed Von Miller, another signing I'm not that high on, to replenish the losses that they had with those two players that I mentioned. Von Miller, now 36 and a half years old. What are you going to get from him? That's a complete wild card. He wasn't available mostly for the Bills, and that's concerning in of its own right, but the production when he was on the Bills wasn't horrible. Wasn't Von Miller, obviously. I don't know what you're going to get from a 37-year-old Von Miller. That's a question mark, and honestly, they're not really in a position where they can afford for him to be bad. If they don't have him, that's bad. That being said, Johnny Newton, I was really high on last year. Obviously had the injury that kept him out, so I'm hoping that with the Commanders basically getting a first-round pick this year to supplement that D-line, if he can stay healthy, I'm optimistic about what he can do this year. That being said, that's a lot of pressure to put on a first-round pick. I'm worried about this D-line. I don't want to say that Johnny Newton's even the primary plan here, but they really do need him to shine to the upside for this team to have any depth in this D-line and for it to be an even competent unit. The linebackers are the best part of this unit. Bobby Wagner had somehow a near-career year last year. He's incredible. He's still got it. Frankie Louvu can help the D-line as a blitz threat, so I'm excited to see what he can do this year. The secondary is rough with this team, and this is why I'm bringing up the defense first, because I think the most important factors for this team's success are, can this defense just hold its own? Last year it didn't even really hold its own. It was just the offense being incredible. I think the defense is going to need to hold its own for this team to be competent. Marshawn Lattimore needs to return to form. If Marshawn Lattimore can go back to what he usually has been, I think they just have a bad secondary. If Marshawn Lattimore sucks, this is a horrible secondary. Let's go back to the offense, the happy thing that I was talking about, and I can talk about Jayden Daniels, where once again, we can shine a bit more optimistic of a light on this team. Jayden Daniels is already an elite quarterback. He's well into the top 10. There's arguments to be made that this is the best rookie quarterback season in the history of football, in the history of the NFL, which is just an absurd thing to say. Not to mention, he only gets more support, in my opinion. They keep Terry McLaurin. They add Deebo Samuel, who's probably washed, but, a better wide receiver too than Diami Brown, in my opinion, even as he is now. They add Laramie Tunsil, which is a huge addition. I don't know what Houston was thinking, but the Commanders now have Laramie Tunsil, so that's great for him. I feel like what we usually see with surprising breakouts like this is that part of the reason why a team was so successful in that way is because defenses didn't know how to scheme against them. They never seen what that offense was doing, so when it breaks onto the scene, it's harder to adapt, it's hard to guess, game plan, etc. You've now given 31 other teams a season to understand what Jayden Daniels does, to more effectively game plan against him. For that reason, I think Jayden Daniels is going to have a hard time repeating what he did last year, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be bad. I think that the Commanders will be easier to scheme against this year. They're going to have their deficiencies taken advantage of. Their defense is not going to be able to hold its own. I think we're going to see more losses because it's going to be hard for Jayden Daniels to lead one of the best offenses in the league again. And that defense is just not there. It's just, there's no talent on it. Not to mention this O-line, even though it does have Laramie Tunsil, Sam Cosmi is going to be out till January, and that is a huge loss. The Commanders traded Brian Robinson to the 49ers as well. I guess they wanted to get him out before his contract year. Now you're stuck with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and Austin Eckler. It seems like Austin Eckler is going to be running back one. Do you want Austin Eckler to be your running back one? That's a rhetorical question. The answer is no, you don't want that anymore. So I'm also dubious about the running aspect of this team. The Commanders, I think, have made themselves a bit more predictable with the moves that they made this offseason. Hopefully, Deebo Samuel can mess up opposing teams' game plan. Hopefully, he can continue to be the game-wrecking ball of energy that we've known him to be. But man, last season, did he ever look washed? And I hope he bounces back here. I hope that the Commanders can switch up their offense, keep defenses guessing with Deebo Samuel. I'm just dubious about that happening. I think it's important to note for this Commanders team that the teams that the Commanders beat in the playoffs were beat up. So many injuries, especially that Lions team. I don't think that the Commanders were lucky. They deserved to get to the NFC Championship. But I don't think that they were as good as we believe they are. I mean, the Eagles beat them handily. So coming back into this season, when we're looking at it from preseason perspective, it's hard to say that the Commanders are going to come out and repeat what they did last year. Let's get into the schedule prediction. Week 1, home versus Giants is going to be a win. Week 2, away at Packers, I'm going to say it's a loss. Week 3, home versus Raiders, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 4, away at Falcons, I'm going to say it's a win. Week 5, away at Chargers, I'm going to say that's a loss. Week 6, home versus Bears, that's a win. Week 7, away at Cowboys, loss. Week 8, away at Chiefs, loss. Week 9, home versus Seahawks, win. Week 10, home versus Lions, loss. Week 11, away at Dolphins, win. They have the bye week, week 12, doing okay going into that bye week. Week 13, home versus Broncos, that's a win. Week 14, away at Vikings, that's a loss. Week 15, away at Giants, that's a loss. I'm going to say they split the season series with the Giants. Week 16, home versus Eagles, that's a win. Week 17, home versus Cowboys, that's a win. Week 18, away at Eagles, I'm going to say it's a loss. That brings the Commanders to a season total of 9 wins, just a half game under that win over under. My prediction is generally this offense will take a slight step back, not a major step back, but a slight step back because they're no longer a surprise. And this defense is so unpredictable, man. I don't know what's going to come out of this defense. I want to believe that they can be good, but I just don't think that the talent's there. Dan Quinn is an incredible defensive mind. I don't know if he can fix this. That's where I'm at on this Commanders team. Hopefully they can prove me wrong, shine to the upside. They were so exciting, so much fun to watch last year. I am hoping that they can prove me wrong because I want to see Jane Daniels continue to play in the playoffs. Let me know what you guys think about the Commanders. Let me know what you guys think about this video in general. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Once again, would love the engagement in the comments. That brings us to the end of my NFL season prediction video. Side note, future Alex here. I know that I'm posting this after the NFL season started. Sorry about that. I did not realize how big of a task this video was going to end up being. I was hoping this would just kind of be a quick, quickie, 20-30 minute video. It's going to be more than that, I'm guessing. So I apologize for not getting this out early enough. I didn't change any of my opinions. I didn't change anything that I wrote. I didn't change my schedule predictions. All of that was done ahead of time. It was just the recording that was not done by the time that the season started. I will try and be better about it next year. Thank you all so much for watching. This was a really fun video to make the first on the T4Q channel. I'm really looking forward to continuing to post on here, and I really am looking forward to reviewing this at year's end. I did this a few years ago. I got to check my accuracy and go game by game and see how many I actually got right, and that's so much fun, man. Being able to quantify how bad I am at guessing the NFL is going to be a really interesting challenge, experiment, whatever you want to call it, and I'm super excited to do that at the end of the year with you guys. If you want me to predict the NFL playoffs based off of my season predictions, let me know in the comments. I'd love any feedback that you have on this style, how I did, etc. Feedback will help me grow. So anything you want to put in the comments is very much appreciated. Please like, please share, all that type of stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.